Hello everybody. Hi. Welcome to the Sustainable Communities panel. It's nice to see you all today. I'm Councillor Natasha Ryan, your chair. Just a bit of housekeeping. We're not expecting a fire alarm, so if you hear anything, please exit the building. The meeting is being filmed, and if you do not wish to be filmed, please let us know. As we are at the start of tonight, it's customary for me to go through our expectations of each other. So, to members of the panel, please be respectful of each other. Anyone presenting or speaking tonight, we're here to be a critical friend to the council and not recreate West Side Story. Anyone observing our meeting, thank you for taking the time to play your part in our local democracy, but please do not interrupt in any way. Be respectful of members, guests and speakers. In return, I will do my best to be respectful of you, your contribution and your time. So, without further ado, do we have any apologies for absence? Declarations of pecuniary interest? No. Minutes of the previous meeting, are these true and accurate representation of what happened? Councillor Mundy?
Thank you, Chair. I think it's pretty good summarising what happened. But I think I've raised at the agreement just a few clarifications regarding street cleaning, fly tipping, and the response to the issue when you try to upload pictures via the council website. If we could just clarify those responses a bit further in the minutes, that would be fantastic if possible.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay. So matters arising. We have a report been put forward by Chris. Did you want to speak to that at the moment?
Just very briefly, Chair, just to say that, given the importance of the matter, we thought it was helpful just to inform Scrutiny in the room all the recommendations, and that's in the paper at item 4, and work is taking place on all of those actively. The report's going back to Cabinet in this month with the draft or the final action plan that we received from the earlier. I don't know whether John had anything further to add.
Thank you, Chair. I think that summarizes the current work that we're currently doing. We have met with Clarion housing once. We're planning to meet again this coming Friday. We're progressing with member workshops to support the project and action plan as well as working with the primary uses or level improvement plan to improve street.
There was also the matter of tennis courts, and we were looking to get a sum of what would it cost to subsidise tennis in the borough. So no update. So can we chase? Yeah. Okay. So item number 5, we have Paul Quinn from Clarion Housing here to do a presentation on the 3 estate regens that happened across the borough. Today, members of the panel attended the regen sites to have a look at the work progressing there and receive an update. And I'd like to thank you so much for the time you spent with us today, and thank the members of the panel that came along. And yeah, so I'll just turn over to Paul, and Daniel and I will move up the way.
Thank you, Chair. I'll try and do this on my feet, I think, given the computer's a little bit away. So if people are struggling to hear, just shout out. So, as you know, we've been working on the Merton Regeneration project for a number of years now. We're just into delivery, so we'll see in a moment or two. And I thought it's quite a good time just to bring the committee up to speed on where we are across each of the 3 estates. First thing just to say is I'm going to talk quite a lot about consultation at different points here this evening, and including digital consultation. I think I mentioned this last time I was at Scrutiny. We just updated all the websites. The new websites are available at the old website address. Those of you who lived there before, they're laid out a bit differently. They're a bit more user-friendly, I think, now. So certainly take the opportunity to have a look at those when you get home too. It just brings up the speed of each of the 3 neighbourhoods in turn, and just tell you where we are with each of them. And we'll begin with Eastfields, and we are finally now getting some traction underway with Eastfields. This is what we call Eastfields Phase 1. So this is the first 197 homes that we propose to build out of these fields. We were just consulting with local residents on this in the last week. This planning application is just about ready, so we'll be submitting it very quickly after Christmas, and I'm putting it in for yourselves to consider. It's 197 homes. Every one of those 197 homes is earmarked for someone who lives on East Fields currently. So they're either a Clarion tenant or they're a resident homeowner who has chosen to stay. So the principle of rehousing existing community first is what we're working to here. This is how we will propose to build out East Fields. It's a really difficult site. People will have heard me say this before. It's very tight on the boundaries. We don't have a kickstart site, so we've got no empty site to start in. So we're going to have to be quite clever about how we're going to move all the people around and the buildings around. But basically, we're going to start in that bottom right-hand corner. We're just emptying some of those homes now, just moving some people into some temporary accommodation, just in readiness. And then we'll be able to build out on the second image there, just the first of the new homes. And that will give us an opportunity then to move people into those new homes. And then the red in the third image there is where we will start demolition. And then that allows us then to build out the bottom left-hand corner, complete that phase, demolish the adjacent properties, and move everyone in. And that last image is the first phase built out. 197 homes. We have around about 330 families to rehouse on East Fields. So 197 means we've already rehoused well over half the families who are staying straight out the back as quickly as we possibly can. We're doing quite a lot of detailed work now because we're getting towards the end of the planning application with residents, but looking at brick types and the designs we're likely to use that, and just some of the detailing in the buildings themselves. We've had a number of pre-application conversations with local authority planning officers, looking at getting some details around how bicycle storage might work in the area, looking at refuge strategy. This estate is going to have underground refuse, so as is High Path as well. These will be the first two locations in the borough where we've got underground refuse system. So we're just exploring with residents how that will work, going to look at some examples of that working, and then looking at parking and electric vehicle charging points. So all the detail you would expect to see in an application that's coming towards the end of preparation, ready for coming in, and just starting to get now some sort of better quality CGI images as the design completes. This will be the tallest building across the whole master plan for East Fields, and this comes forward early in the programme itself with a new community centre at its base. There's no community centre at the minute on East Fields, and the energy centre. The energy centre will be built out that will power the whole estate, and that will be air source heat pump powered, so not gas. We may well have gas in as a backup, but it's primarily air source heat pump, anticipating the new environmental standards that we will see in the London plan over the next couple of months as that's published. So then just looking at where we are in Ravensbury, we've just started on Ravensbury and the first new homes are coming out of the ground. And I just have a little film here which hopefully will run. Some of you will have seen this before. Just bear with me. So this is, if you're familiar with the estate, this is the river just on the left of here. We're going down the side of the estate here at the moment. These are new 6-person, 4-bed riverside houses where we have 4 of these being built currently at the back of the site. And then we come around to the front onto Morden Road itself. So this is approaching Ravensbury down Morden Road. This is the first platted block. We're crossing the river here at this point. That's the side of leads down to Ravensbury Park, down in that direction. And then we're just looking now down Morden Road itself. So this is the very tight corner. This is the Surrey Arms pub on the left-hand side. So you'll be familiar with this corner here, very tight. A platted block there, and then a series of townhouses along Morden Road itself. Cars move back and off the road. So then going into the estate, this is Ravensbury Grove itself. We're just coming into what will be a new street, the community centre at the base of this building here. It's twice the size of the existing community centre. And then you'll see the principle we're working to is pitched roofs, bricks, mainly houses. Very much what is there at the moment, because that works very well in Ravensbury. And coming then into the part of the estate itself, this is the sustainable urban drainage system that we'll be introducing. You will notice some of the homes have got steps up to them. This is to make sure that we're anticipating a future flood event, which is always possible in this location, making sure that these homes are secure and safe from that. And then just finally, little new street through the middle of smaller houses, just through the middle of the estate. Now the principles you see here are working with what works very well in Ravensbury at the minute, which is brick, relatively low scale, pitched roofs, and changing out that works very well. Just one other point, this is called Ravensbury Live, so if you have a mobile phone with you, if you want to have a look at this in your browser, we just launched this a couple of weeks ago. Ravensbury Live is what you need to put into your browser. This is effectively showing residents what the new homes look like as they're being built out. We're focusing this on phase 1 at Ravensbury. You'll be able to click through to see the layouts of individual properties, some images of those properties. There's films that show how the estate has been built out in time lapse. There's an interview with the project manager talking about what's going on the estate at that month, so whether it's roof work or whether it's block work going in, all explained. And if you are a resident who's actually moving into one of those homes, you get an individual ID number and you'll be able to see the cameras inside your actual home as it's being built out. So the whole idea being that people can feel connected to the homes as they're built out themselves. So we've got all this consultation, all this discussion for these last 5-6 years, and now we're actually building them out. What we really don't want is a big hoarding fence and everything that's going on behind it then lost. We want people to understand what's going on and to feel some ownership of that process. We're testing it out in those first 21 homes at Ravensbury. If it's a successful trial, we will run it out across the programme as a whole. And so this is HighPath. I'm sure you're very familiar with HighPath. Just touching on a few aspects of this. One of the elements that we've worked really hard on the HighPath is to try and understand the local area and what design features work very well there, and to try to start to replicate that. And what is wholly new, there's very little of HighPath is staying. We're effectively starting from scratch. So what can we do to help bed those new homes and that new infrastructure into the surrounding neighbourhood? And one of that is a pretty extensive study of what the area looks like around it. So the first piece of development is underway. At HighPath, this is an image of what will be phase 1 and phase 2. Phase 2 is the area directly in front of the new school that's being built out at the moment. It's 134 homes. The construction company is Hill Construction. They're on site there now. We will start to see those homes get completed over the next 18 to 20 months. We'll start to see those come back to us. That's around about £35 million in value. And these are the homes that we'll be building on Abbey Road. So this is part of phase 2. So this is the next area we will be working on. And this is what we propose. And these homes on the bottom right-hand corner are what they're opposite. And so what you can see, what we're doing is obviously building modern homes to a modern standard, particularly in terms of insulation and space standards, but trying to take what's good from the surrounding area, look at some of the design features, window shape, looking at the roof detailing, again the materiality, what works well. So this is the key really to making HighPath work. And then some of the sort of finer detail here. What we're looking to do is all the entrances into all the larger buildings will all be designed exactly the same, irrespective of whether these are social rental properties or properties for sale. And some people will pay quite a lot of money to live in HighPath, and we need that money to cross-subsidise all the social housing. But from our perspective, whether you're a social rented tenant or whether you're someone who's who's bought their home. Everyone needs to be treated and valued, and consequently things like externally you won't be able to tell what the tenure of those homes, and then critically then when you step into those homes, you will be able to see exactly the same design features. Again, lots of tile work all through the scheme. There's a lot of tile work in the area, and that's the sort of thing that we want to replicate. And so what happens next? Well, over the next sort of 12, 18 months or so, we will see the planning application for the rest of Ravensbury, so what we call phases 2 to 4, but effectively the rest of the neighbourhood. Will hopefully be at planning committee in November. It's been submitted for a little while now, we're just waiting for the last bits and pieces to come through, so I'm hoping you're going to be looking at that very shortly. Eastfields Phase 1, as I mentioned earlier, we will be submitting those first 200 homes for planning sometime just after Christmas. We will be then tendering the contractor for the rest of Ravensbury, so that work will all hopefully get underway just as soon as we complete the first phase. That's around about 180 homes. The first new homes will be completed in Ravensbury around June. The contractor tells us they're on track, so we should see those first 21 homes at the end of Ravensbury Road come back to us. We'll then be tendering phase 2 because we'll be well into the first new homes at High Pass, so let's get ready for the next block of work coming forward. 113 homes, again, every one of them earmarked for someone who already lives on High Path. And then we will start on site, start building out the rest of Ravensbury as quickly as possible after those first new homes are completed. The third phase of High Path in the area around the tube station and along the high street, including the lots of the retail units. That's up to around about 500 homes, so that's a really big planning application. That will come in sometime next year, depending on how we get on with that and how well we get on with the planning offices and preparing that and that they're comfortable with that. And then we'll get underway building the first new homes at Eastfields with a tailwind, provided we can get a planning application in and it gets determined relatively quickly. We could just about make a start towards the back end of next year at Eastfields, but there's a number of hurdles to clear before that's the case, but certainly as quick as possible to get away with Eastfields. And then we will see the first new homes completed at High Path, probably just about the beginning of 2021. So that's what's happening next. You can see it's a programme of activity across all 3 neighbourhoods. It's taken us a little while to get here, but we're underway now, and we hope to be underway in all 3 within the next sort of year to 14 months. And I'm happy now then to take any questions anyone has in relation to that presentation or any other aspect of the Regeneration project.
Okay, I think what we'll do first is we've got a few resident speakers who've asked to attend tonight. So first off, can I have, we're going to give 3 minutes each. I'm afraid I will have to cut you off if you go too long, so please don't make me. So can I have Cyprian Edmonds first, please?
Yes, it's been here. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. Ready?
Yep.
3, 2, 1. Thank you. In previous council meetings I have requested quite strenuously, almost to the point that it's nauseating, that aspects of the energy strategy and health and safety need to be taken more deeply into consideration. I say this because the biggest and overriding comment from residents of the estates concerned in this regeneration has been the lack of transparency or integral involvement regarding many aspects, for example, design and financial remuneration. We understand Clarion's efforts to acquire the views of residents on this topic is difficult. This difficulty can be eradicated if their strategy is to include empowering residents as opposed to disempowering them. Whether they go about this intentionally or unintentionally, the outcome is still the same: exclusion. It needs to be noted, for example, that no residents were part of the discussion regarding the financial model for the redevelopment of the estates, and in any consultation will not ask for their overall views. The Rainsford Review, published earlier this year, reflects this kind of disenfranchisement eloquently, and we humbly suggest Clarion look again at it so that they can set about regeneration in a new way. From the Council's senior planner, I received an email which included the following regarding the Phase 2 overarching strategy for Hyde Park. Please note that this document is currently being revised. As a result, the energy strategy previously submitted will be revised. We are still awaiting this revised document. Once I have it, I'll be able to share this with you. Again, I refer to the lack of leadership from the team of Clarion, as this ought to have been reflected to us internally and not aired as a side comment in passing by a council officer. In the outline planning application, which was passed in April 2019, it was noted that the council strongly advised that independent third-party certification is obtained from a manufacturer to ensure the fire performance of any of their door sets in relation to the required needs and to ensure compliance following the Grenfell Tower fire, end quote. We have concerns that this advice can be met suitably, given, for example, that the cylinders of the fire doors on Hyde Park Estate, which were installed over a year ago, were changed this week because in practice they were faulty and trapping some residents inside their homes. The point is, these fire doors should have been tested, fit for purpose and strenuously tested, so that residents need not have lived in the past year in fear of their lives. There now needs to be a reframing of this overall plan, one in which the residents feel wholly included, and by residents we refer to social tenants as well as leaseholders and freeholders. We're calling for an overhaul of the financial offer whereby residents are penalised extensively, and a review of the design, all of which should have a robust level from, you guessed it, the residents. If you're not included in the initial set of discussions, then I fear the disaster of Grenfell will be repeated again. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next we have, sorry, Paul, are you happy for us to carry on? We've got 4 speakers now.
No problem.
Next we have Daniel Weir. Is he here? No? Okay. Eve Cohen.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to talk about the lack of toilet and bathroom provision in Hyde Park Phase 2. There are interviews from the 60s on YouTube where council tenants talk about their new council homes and their delight at the bathroom and separate toilet. During Clarion's detailed design consultation, several of us were shocked that in 5-person properties the only toilet was in the only bathroom, thus putting it out of use whenever someone is having a bath or shower. To our delight, the architects managed to add another toilet. This has not improved the situation for 3- and 4-person properties where the only toilet is within the bathroom. Just imagine someone with gastroenteritis and winter vomiting virus not being able to get to the toilet when the bathroom is in use. How can parents teach children good hygiene like washing their hands before eating when the only facilities are in an occupied bathroom? The kitchen sink is not a replacement for those of us taught not to wash our hands when food is being prepared. It may not be fashionable to separate toilet and bathroom, but it is eminently more practical. We all lead much busier lives and have greater time pressure. Just one bathroom for 5, 6, 7 people to wash, shower, bathe, clean their teeth, get out to work and school in the morning is inadequate. There should be a second shower room for these larger properties. At the council meeting on the 18th of September, Cabinet Member Councillor Welton expressed concern over unscrupulous landlords and homes of multiple occupancy. These Hyde Park properties could become the slums of the future, with unscrupulous landlords renting out homes of multiple occupancy with inadequate sanitary provision. I raised these issues at Planning Committee on the 17th of October. In response, some councillors talked about growing up in houses with only one toilet and dismissed having to wait as a problem. The council also stated it was unlikely that the larger properties would be at full occupancy, so lack of toilet and bathroom facilities would not be an issue. If these larger occupancy properties are not needed, why are they being built? I thought Clarion were building appropriately sized properties to rehouse their existing tenants, particularly those now in overcrowded condition. We can all tell stories of how we grew up. I didn't feel this necessary at PAC. I thought all councillors would be able to look to the future. I have friends who grew up with only an outside toilet. I was very fortunate. I grew up in a household of 6. Not only was our toilet separate from our bathroom, we had the luxury of a second toilet downstairs. To avoid conflict, I bathed at 6 in the morning. My father bathed before going to work, my mother during the day. I left my 3 siblings to argue over the bathroom in the evenings. We're building homes for the future. Over the decades, we've progressed from no toilet facilities to outside toilets to internal bathrooms. Are we saying we cannot continue to improve living conditions? I'm almost willing to bet my bottom dollar that when Clarion design and build the properties for private sale or rent, even a 2-bed property will have 2 bathrooms, an ensuite shower room and a family bathroom, both with toilet. It's too late for High Path phases 1 and 2. I merely ask that for other phases or estates where replacement for social housing is still to be designed or finalised, more consideration is given to toilet and bathroom facilities to improve people's lives and not step back in time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, and now we've got Sarah Sharp.
I haven't got a speech, I've just got a few points following on from what Paul and the others have said. Paul said that he was building for the next 100 years, but as we've heard, there's a lot still to be needed in terms of building for the people and not building in terms of units. The height is a problem. We still have an issue with height. It causes canyons. I'm going to specifically talk about High Path because it seems to be at the moment an island within South Wimbledon. We do not want to create an island. We want South Wimbledon, we want High Path to be part of South Wimbledon and to be stitched back into the fabric of the street and the neighbourhood. At the moment, we've seen designs of phase 1 being done and approved reluctantly at planning because it was there was a concern that it would set the tone for what comes next. Phase 2, well, I muscled in and forced myself to be one of those who looked at the designs. I would say that the consultation isn't very wide. You get to hear of it, you don't actually know about it. I find it quite shocking that people in High Path who own their own flats still don't know the small print about how the financials are going to work. They still think they can pass it on to their children immediately, and that is far from the truth. They actually don't really know what is going on there. The design is an issue. It should be designed as a whole. At the moment, you've got phase 1 was designed, phase 2 was we made a lot of fuss about trying to get some of the Wimbledon features into it. Phase 3, we were shown some drawings, but we were told that this was not what was going to go through. So actually, the consultation isn't complete at all. We don't know what phase 3 is going to look like. I found it very disappointing looking at the drawings. It seems like it's an experiment. Phase 1 is something, we've improved slightly in phase 2, phase 3 maybe we'll get it a bit better, and by the time we get to the luxury flats, we might actually have the right quality. There's a lot of stress from the push from the government for better quality, high quality. We do not want a divide. We do not want one side of the social housing being of a poorer material, whereas the luxury side is of a better material. We have to have an equal, self-contained development that actually you can look at in the future and say, wow, this is fantastic. We're not going to have a regeneration for the next 70 years, so we need to get it right. There's the new National Design Guide, and that also illustrates how well-designed places that are beautiful and enduring and successful can be achieved in practice. Now, there's townhouses. How do they relate at all to anything about Wimbledon? Those funny roofs, will they contain water, or are they going to drain it off? So we saw some lovely bits that Paul put together about the character and the identity of the area. Where is that reflected in the actual plans?
Okay, thank you. Sorry, you've
Thank
finished
you.
2 minutes now. Thank you. Okay, so Paul, if you don't mind coming back on those points, and then we'll go to the panel see if there's anything further to add.
Thank you, Chair. I'll try and cover off as many as I can. In terms of, let me do the energy issue first. What we're proposing on both Eastfield and at High Path is, by some measure, amongst the most energy efficient new buildings that have been built in London for a very, very long time. Very much this is about fabric first. This is building homes that are insulated well or airtight from day one. But critically, the energy systems that we're using is a district heat network. It's being powered by air source heat pumps. We have had a specialist district heat network company come in and critique the designs for both energy centres. The end result is that we're now putting underfloor heating in every home, irrespective of whether it's social rented, whether it's for private sale, and that in turn then allows us to run the entire heat network at 10 degrees cooler than you would find on a traditional heat network. So on energy, there's, we think, a very positive story here in Merton, and the principles that we've developed here in Eastfields and High Path are now being applied throughout the Clarion group as a whole. The design supplement that we produced for High Path is now the design supplement that we use across the whole group. So on energy, I don't think we will fall short. I think we will end up with class-leading developments here in Merton off the back of that. In terms of openness around financial offers to residents, obviously the key to the whole project, and I've said this many times, many people have heard me say this, the key to the entire project is not designs, not buildings. The key to it is the residents' offer. It's the offer we make to people who own their own homes, or those people who are renting from Clarion. And we went to very considerable effort to consult with residents all the way through, to come up with a residents' offer that was well received when we went out and tested it through the Electoral Reform Society, and is still regarded across London as the benchmark for how a residents' offer should be. And that includes the offer made to people who own their own homes. So I will defend they helped everything we've done around that aspect of the project, and I would dispute any indication that we did otherwise, and consult extensively about that and reflect people's requirements and people's concerns in the offer that was eventually produced. And to say, similarly to the energy strategy, that offer is now the one that we apply as a principle throughout the Clarion group. The principle being it's communities first, it's the existing communities first, and that's carried all the way through the process. In terms of bathrooms, we've had this conversation many times. We are working to, obviously, to design and national design standards and to planning expectations. Actually, as you know, we exceed those in the plans that we show in High Path. I'll be honest and say we have no plans to introduce additional bathrooms into 1 and 2 bedroom properties, but the point's well made, and we were able to at least incorporate some of that in the designs for phase 2, and that will be reflected in the future designs throughout the rest of the programme, because I think it's a point well made. On the issues around heights and design quality, again, Sarah, you and I have had this conversation many times. We're not going to agree on very much here. The tallest building we show on High Path is 10 stories. There are currently 3 12-storey towers on High Path. 3 12 stories. And we are not pushing the height here. We are coming forward with a master plan that, contrary to how you described it, from day one was all about knitting High Path back into the surrounding area. High Path at the moment is an area that people don't walk through unless they're familiar with it. One of the very first studies we did was a study called Space Syntax, where we were tracking how people walked through and around High Path. And that indicated that people don't walk through the estate, they avoid walking through it. The principles then that we adopted were streets, front doors, east-west link that doesn't exist at the minute, connectivity with the existing streets across the road at Wimbledon itself, and opening the site out. Consequently, we think what we've come forward with is a much more legible, much more human-scale, friendly, accessible, safer feeling estate than we currently see at the moment there. And that's been reflected in the feedback we've had from all the many consultation events that we have run in High Path over the last few years. Was there anything else I've missed there?
There's something about fire safety.
Well, I can't comment in detail about fire safety to the existing blocks. I've not been involved in that. But certainly in terms of fire safety within the the new blocks, we are not only responding to the existing legislation around that, we are anticipating what we think the outcome of the Hackett report will be and the resulting legislation surround that. It's worth noting that one of the lead contributors to that Hackett report, and right at the heart of the whole debate around what future housing should look like post-Grenville, is the Senior Environmental Manager at PRP Architects, and he's the same person who is advising on the fire strategy for us across the entire Merton project. So we're confident that we're not only responding to what's required of us now, but we have a very solid understanding of what's likely to come forward as a result of the Hackett review and Grenville, and anticipating that in the designs that we're producing now.
Thank you, Paul. So I'll just move over to the panel now. Any comments, questions, concerns? Councillor Bridger?
The question was raised by one of the residents about, or the allegation, or the question really about differing standards between those on social housing, affordable housing, and what was termed luxury housing. Is that a fair reflection of what will be an unintended consequence of taking a phased approach, or not?
I don't think it is fair. As you have seen, we've gone to considerable effort to design, externally at least, homes that are all exactly of the same quality, and even them carrying that same concern about making sure that everyone is treated fairly and everyone feels valued, irrespective of tenure they're living in, into the interior of the buildings themselves. We're working to the same space standards. There's no different space standards, whether it's a private sector home or whether it's a social rented home. And critically, the point about being phased development is very important. One of the very first things we did was we developed a design code, a very detailed, very extensive design code, to make sure that all the later phases refer back to the same expectations around quality, to the same expectations that we have around connectivity between phases, irrespective of tenure, and that the master plan, which is the key to the projects, particularly on High Path and Eastfields, that master plan is sacrosanct. So future phases are tested against that master plan and are tested against the design code. So I'm entirely confident that phase 6, phase 7 will be of the same quality as the early phases, and the early phases are of a very high quality.
Councillor Holland?
Yeah, thank you. Question about consultation and communication. So one of the comments we always hear is about not sufficient consultation. I don't know whether that's true or not, but it's generally a good thing if you could consider a wider consultation, not just those on this estate, but those nearby and those who could be impacted, especially as we get into the later phases when there'll be work going on, lots of traffic and vehicle movements. And that leads on to the next point. Do you have a strategy for that? And also a communication strategy to let people know about impending works, both on this estate and those nearby, because this is going to be a big major building site, and that could concern people.
Well, we've undergone a really extensive consultation program all the way through this scheme. Now, regularly I come here and do get challenged on my consultation. I've never worked on a regeneration scheme where that isn't the case. There's always a way of making consultation work better, to learn as you go along potential ways of improving it. I alluded to the efforts we're going to around sort of digital engagement now. That's partly because we know every consultation exercise tends to reach the same people, or it reaches people who are immediately affected by it, and the point you make is an important one, that really what we're trying to design here are not standalone neighbourhoods, that these are connected back into the surrounding area, add value to the surrounding area. You know, for example, the High Path Park, it's not by accident that it's open at either end. If we were a private sector developer, we'd have closed that in because that's where the value is, around green space. That's about connecting the site back. So I think we work really hard at consultation. We can do more, and we're trying to do more, as I've demonstrated here. I think we go far beyond what you would normally see in any comparable scheme I've not come across anywhere that's done more than this. Can we do better? Of course we can. Again, and also as this scheme gets going, obviously there's a lot of the consultation so far has been around getting it up on its feet, getting the bones of it right, and getting planning applications through. We're now into delivery. As you say, it becomes a different kettle of fish. It becomes about impact on people's lives, surrounding, critically, people who live on the estates and live adjacent to the homes that have been built out. Very often their own new home being built right outside the front door. So we've been running drop-ins and workshops and meetings with the contractors, and a lot more information going through people's doors, just to make sure that people are up to speed with developments. And things like Ravensbury Live, for example, is an opportunity to follow the progress of the scheme and understand what's going on, what is being delivered in the back of those lorries, what's going to happen in the next month. Those are all exercises that will make this process work so much better as we go through into delivery itself over the next 5, 6, 7, 8 years.
Okay, so I'll go to Councillor Fairclough first, then Councillor Mundy, then Councillor Butler.
Thank you, Chair. Following up on consultation, I wondered if you might expand a little bit further on a couple of examples where engagement has led to changes in the plans. If you could outline a couple of examples of that.
Well, I go back to the point I made around the residence offer. A great deal of the early consultation was around that residence offer. And that was about understanding what it is that people were concerned about, and what they had read about in other regeneration schemes that have happened in London. We've done us no favours at all, and those of us who are trying to bring forward community-led and locality-led regeneration schemes. So a lot was about, particularly when we're looking at homeowners, a very high proportion of homeowners across these 3 neighbourhoods, so around about 40%. What is that really concerned people there? How could we adapt and change the offer to make that work? And then that's reflected in the replacement home offer that we have here, where if you are a resident homeowner, we are going to build you a new home of the same typology, and that is transferred to you on a full 125-year lease or a new freehold. There's very, very few examples of that anywhere else, certainly nothing at the scale we're talking about here. We have 499 homes to buy back. That's a direct result of that consultation, and that's what shaped that residence offer. Now, if we're talking about some of the consultation around the designs themselves, I think probably at Ravensbury is probably the best example of that. Now, if you look at the whole approach to Ravensbury, that's been very much about ensuring that the existing community are comfortable with what's being planned there. So the scale of it, the look of it, the number of homes that we propose to build there, the connectivity to the surrounding areas. For example, at Ravensbury, what was very clear from early doors is residents really like the fact that it's one way in and one way out, because it's a quiet location and it's set back. Now, if we were approaching this from a sort of developer perspective, then that's not at all how you would design that. But that, again, you've seen that in that little fly-through. That's what's reflected in the design itself. So it's understanding those little nuances that people are concerned about or want to see reflected in the new development and putting that into the design. It's why the design code, which I alluded to earlier, is so important, because that ensures that those sorts of details are carried right through to the last phase.
Councillor Mundy?
Thank you, Chair. What I'm interested in is partnership working, and more broadly how you work with the council. It's great that we've got James and Paul here, so not putting you too much on the spot, you may want to chime in or not. But I'll be interested to hear how you worked with the council, sort of elements, the best practice that you took in from feedback from them, but more importantly also the feedback you can give with your design standard and the energy scheme that is clearly forward thinking. But more importantly then focusing on some of the things that we could improve. We've got Regeneration with more than permanent. How can we take those lessons to make sure that we're maximising those opportunities in the next big regeneration?
There's no way at all. There's no way at all we can deliver this scheme without the local authority and without the support of members, and particularly without the support of officers. We need to make use of a number of the statutory powers that you have that we don't have. So, for example, we had to make a very significant change to the local plan in the first place to allow us to allow these planning applications to come forward. And we're going to need you to make use of your compulsory purchase order powers in the very near future to make sure that the sites can be assembled and brought forward. There's no question that this has to be a partnership brought forward together. Could we do better between us? Absolutely. Paul and James will probably get the T-shirt for the number of times that I've sort of kicked off about why things have taken such a long time to come back to us. Now, I'm from a local authority background, and I used to do very similar jobs to what Paul and James do in other local authorities. So I know what the challenges are in trying to bring that joined up, holistic approach through from a local authority. Clarion's not much different. We have the same blinkered view, and very often within our own teams. It is, though, frustrating that here in Merton, when I look at Merton, I've worked all over the country, and I just see the potential we have here, the potential, not just in terms of homes, which is obviously our top priority here, but the potential to really invest in your neighbourhoods. We have a series of towns effectively here, and I've worked in similar settings like this. And most of my early career is in the West Country. It's been very like that. Small towns that happen to be pulled together into a governance structure of the local government. These are all neighbourhoods that have strengths and weaknesses in their own. And we were talking about this today when we were doing the rounds. I think Mitcham in particular has enormous untapped potential. And obviously we are major landowners and homeowners in Mitcham, and as I mentioned, that I'm sort of behind the scenes trying to piece together a common approach to that part of the borough. I think, if I'm honest, I think you as a local authority could do much more around that. I think it's great untapped potential to create jobs, to create high quality homes, and to make a town centre work so much better. But at the minute, and these guys have heard me say this many times, it just doesn't feel like you have that momentum behind you as an organisation. And you're looking at some very big projects. You have Morton Town Centre, which I'm sure we're going to hear about in a moment or two. You've got Wimbledon Town Centre and all the real infrastructure that's likely to come into there. But the risk is that other parts of the borough don't get the attention they need, including some of the poorest bits, and the bits with the poorest health outcomes, and that's the east, and that's the bit that we're, perfectly honest, the most interested in, and where I think we as an organisation have the most to bring. There are a number of other neighbourhoods that I would dearly love to be addressing and improving and replacing. There's social housing there, the social housing that we have 100% nomination rights to. I'm not going to be able to do that unless we're much more on the same page about what needs to be done to make that happen for me, to encourage my board to allow me to invest another £500 million in Merton when we're already in for 1.4 billion. Why would we spend it here and not in Manchester or Gateshead or Plymouth or some other part of London? Just this enormous potential here, and I just sometimes feel frustrated that we're not collectively recognising that and just get stuck into it.
Thank you. Councillor Butler, and then... Oh, sorry. Did you want to respond?
I think working in partnership always is going to present opportunity, but equally it's going to be times where there's going to be challenges. I think working with a good partner is always a good starting point, and we've been fortunate with Clarion to work with an organisation that sees it about how we create communities, not how do we build houses. I think there's always a tension in local authorities between our statutory function as a planner, the planning department. But I think I take Paul's point that what we need to ensure is that we don't see these three estates are the end result. They're actually at the start of the process of working through the rest of the borough. I think when we looked at the estates regeneration, we were very careful, but completely supported by Clarion, that this was about piecing all of these three estates together to ensure that they were all regenerated, and it wasn't the rest of the borough that took the benefit from that. I think it's always going to be a challenge in terms of delivery, because it's not just the plans, it's not planning, it's also the state of the economy, and we need to make sure that we work in more closely with Clarion on that. But I think what I would take from that was also in relation to Morden. I think we are looking at what Paul and his team have done, learning really positive lessons from that, and how we both engage with the community, how we use things like the residence offer, because this is ultimately about places that people are going to live in, regardless of the looks of the bricks and mortar. That's hugely important and we share those aspirations, but we also shared aspirations to make it a place where people, regardless of tenure, regardless of whether they're living there or whether they're coming there to work, feel actually it's a place to get a stake in. And we'll continue to grow those relationships. We will have times where all will also wear a t-shirt that will contrast, but equally the end result is that what we do is that we regenerate communities, we don't regenerate just places for the sake of it. And I think we in Morden will look to Clarion and learn a lot of lessons from that.
I'll go to Councillor Butler, then Councillor Dean, and we'll probably start wrapping things up.
Thank you, Chair. I'd probably like to start with continuing on that nice tone of keeping communities together, but maybe turn into more questioning, maybe a friendly criticism as well. And these my comments mainly are from the high pass perspective in my ward, but also could apply to the other two areas as well. I'm hearing from my residents that the main kind of feedback is that they can't wait for it to happen, especially for a lot of social-oriented residents that are in severe overcrowding situations, and I think that applies to the other two sites as well. But I'm really interested in what you're saying about keeping communities together and keeping them engaged, and there's some interesting ideas about keeping them engaged, for instance, with the construction, and I'd like to hear more about that. But what I'm hearing from residents as well is that, for instance, repairs on their current properties are simply not good enough. They haven't been good enough for a long time, and I see that as a very key way of keeping people engaged in the process. So maybe what I'd like to hear is what your perfect image of current repairs are whilst these constructions are going on, but also during those repairs what you'd see as a good communication strategy of keeping them on the train that is a long one. I mean, it's good to see progress on there, but it will take a long time to keep people engaged and keep that community together. And a last question within, I'm sure there's two or three of them, is that how do you see the community staying together, especially in High Path, and so far, are the communities holding up? Is there too much turnover in your eyes, or where do you see that going in the future, especially as phases go on?
I think I'll not dwell too long on repairs, if you bear with me, because it's not really my area. But where it does intersect with what I'm doing is making sure that the commitments that we have made to the local authority in terms of repairs and keeping those homes in good condition whilst we prepare for regeneration, and that's formally agreed between us, and it's one of the very first things that the local authority required of us when we were talking about the regeneration programme that's in place. Now, could the repair service be better? I'm not going to sit here and say it couldn't be. It absolutely could be. In fact, I was in a property that was handed over, a void property handed over in Eastfields just a couple of days ago, and it was one property that we had bought back and was preparing to re-let, and I rejected it on the basis of how it had been prepared. So I know firsthand, and my colleague Donna, who works on High Path, you will know, just showed me the inside of one of our properties just last thing before I came out here tonight, and we were moving that family out of there into a property we bought. So there's no question repairs as a way to go, but that partly reflects why we are doing this regeneration. We have probably 12, 13 sizable neighbourhoods here in Merton. There are probably 6 or 7 of those that need significant financial intervention. I have 3 of them here. These are 3 that are identified as the worst of those. The rush for us is to get them regenerated as quickly as possible, to get those existing homes replaced as quickly as possible. The key to that working is keeping that existing community together. And the way we have structured it is that in almost every case, the person moves directly from their existing home into the new home. That's not always entirely possible to do that, but it's probably true for more than 90% of the people who live in those estates at the minute. If they want to stay, they can move directly into the new home. And that is very unusual. And most regeneration schemes have seen the existing community displaced over a series of years, and maybe with an offer to come back, but they never really do come back because their kids are at a different school, or their jobs somewhere else, or whatever, and that community's gone. The principles we've set out at the start is rehousing existing residents first, and that means building out as many homes as possible, as quickly as possible, so we can get those failing homes, and many of them are failing. By definition, I want to demolish them all, get them down as quickly as possible and replace them, people into their new homes.
Just to say, the repairs team will be coming to us in February, so that we will be able to delve into that a bit more. So, Councillor Dean, sorry.
So, I suppose it would be a brave or deranged or political planning applications committee to deny the council what it wants here. So, one of the challenges that a lot of residents have, and when they write to me or speak to me, is that they see everything as a done deal. They also see that a lot of the consultation doesn't seem to show the bricks and mortar. They have a paranoia that the paid for or the purchased properties have better quality materials, even though we use the word same materials. So one statement I would like to make is I would like to see all of this go to the design review panel. Not my friends. I don't like what they say, but they're mildly more independent than the council. And I'd like that design review panel to give anything that's proposed a green light. Because if it can't get through that, I think it will get an easy, a different round of planning applications committee. But can you just confirm to me that the materials used throughout will be the same materials, whichever the type of property that they're going to have?
There's two things there. When we bring all our projects to the design review panel, everything that we've brought so far has gone to the design review panel. And where we've had the opportunity to tweak and amend and improve, we've brought it back to the design review panel. So some of our schemes to be back a couple of times. Because, you know, again, I've spoken to your office about this. I'm a very big fan of design review panels. I think they're terribly important. Not that many local authorities have them anymore, and I'm very pleased that we have one here in Merton. They give me a very hard time. I don't agree with them on everything. There are some aspects that they focus in on when actually, you know, I may or may not agree with all of that. But the principle of design review panel is very important, and we will always bring all our schemes to design review panel. In terms of materials, we're buying bricks, for example, by the million. So I'm not buying them for individual buildings. I'm not buying them for individual cores. For one, you might see a large building, a mansion block that might have one entranceway that's for private homes or owner-occupiers, and one entranceway that might be for social rented. The material throughout that building is exactly the same. We're making no distinction around any of that, and that will be the case all the way through. There's no, you'll have seen, and I hope we'll accept that we're going to very strenuous efforts here to make this as equal a community, as society as we possibly can. It's not easy to do that because the cost of this scheme are absolutely enormous. The risk to us is enormous. Because we've made this commitment to rehouse existing residents first, we carry a huge debt at the front of the programme. Because all I'm doing is buying back homes where I have to buy back existing residents' homes, and I'm building homes that have no sale value because they're for people who already live on the estates. All has to be front-ended. We're gambling, effectively, I'm going to use that term in front of my board, that the sales values of the homes towards the back of the programme come through and allow us to pay off that debt, and critically, that there's enough money to even out the cost across the three neighbourhoods, because as you will be very aware, only iPath generates anything like a surplus here. We use over £100 million on the Eastfield scheme. We can't get it anywhere near break even. We're doing it this way because it's the right thing to do, and the design quality and the build cost of Eastfields is almost identical to what it is in High Path. Even though there's High Path properties, I'll be able to sell them eventually for significantly more than I'll be able to sell the sales values in Eastfields. Build cost is the same.
Okay. So thank you very much, Paul. I think we'll end this part of the meeting there. Thank you again for coming tonight and for your time today. It was really helpful. And we're going to move on to agenda item number 6, which is the single-use plastics action plan. Luckily, we have the former chair of that task group on our panel, so it should be interesting. So can we have Mark Humphreys?
Good evening, Chair. So I presented an update for September based on the recommendations of the single-use plastics report. We've made some good progress in some areas, not so good progress in some other areas, but there's generally quite a lot of movement in terms of our arrangements in the Civic Centre. So we've made quite a lot of progress around the issue of recycling. We've verified that the kind of concerns that were raised by staff regarding the separation of general waste against recyclable waste, contractors have confirmed that's the case. The facilities management team have actually removed a lot of the general waste bins from the building and replaced those with larger recyclable receptacles. So we've already started the process of separating recycling to a greater extent, and we're planning to move towards centralised recycling within the kitchen areas of the Civic Centre. Doing a lot of work with colleagues in Environment and Regeneration around food waste, so we're looking at opportunities to introduce food waste recycling in the Civic Centre. And we are also doing some survey work of the other operational buildings outside the Civic Centre to look for opportunities to kind of extend the recycling of plastics, cardboards, paper, glass is another one that we're looking to introduce as well. So there's been quite a lot of movement on that. The comms team have been working with colleagues in ENR and the facilities management team to kind of look at signposting and to encourage staff to adopt different kind of behaviours around the way that they deal with refuse. Bits and pieces on there I want to pick up on. Apologies, not really my area of expertise, but around sustainable communities bit, I know Chris Lee's team are doing some work around business awards to try and encourage the businesses around Malden and in the main town centres to adopt a different kind of approach to the way they recycle rubbish. I think one of the things that they're looking at doing is introducing a category within the Best Business Awards. So that's something that Sarah and Ian Osborne are looking at. That's about it really. So there's been quite a lot of progress. There's still quite a lot of work to be done. I just want to reassure members that we're on the case and we're dealing with it as quickly as we can. So happy to take any questions.
Okay, sorry, so Councillor Pritchard, Councillor Dean, Councillor Begler, Councillor Holden, and then the chair will go last. So Councillor Pritchard first.
Thank you. Is there an estimated cumulative cost of the proposed actions in this plan?
Most of the stuff that we're doing, Councillor, is kind of just general adjustments that we make to our existing refuse collection arrangements from the Civic Centre. There's possibly going to be a slight increase in terms of the stuff we do in the outside buildings. That will be assessed as part of the wider kind of assessment of what proposals might be. And it might well be that we might have to come back and ask for some additional funding. But we'll do an assessment of that and then come back with some funding figures in the future.
Councillor Becker.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. I think last time this task group's report came to the panel, we talked about overall targets and objectives. And I think what I took from this was it was very difficult for me to see where we're going, what's the and how far we are along that journey. I mean, the journey is presumably no single-use plastic at all, but it's very difficult from this to see. We've got in item number 1, we've got a measure referred to. In item 2, there is no proposed action or progress. Item 3 lacks any detail of measure. Item 4, again, it's difficult to see where the numbers are on that. And then item 8 is that we'll be kept up to date with regular updates on progress against the action plan. I kind of feel it's quite difficult to see how we're doing, and I wonder if it might be considered if some numbers and some progress could actually be put into the action plan for next time we come back.
It's fine, Councillor. I mean, apologies for that. I mean, it's not been that long since the report was published. There's been a lot of work been going on in the background between myself and our officers to try and kind of plan what we're going to be doing. And the difficulty is that it kind of sits across 2 areas, 2 directorates within the council. So obviously there's a lot of the recycling elements that sit within the ENR. I'll kind of be tasked with putting those individual elements together. There was a huge focus as part of the original report on the Civic Centre. So we've done a huge amount of work in the background with the with a concessional catering contractor. We've put glasses in the kitchens to facilitate people not using plastic water bottles. We've put in some water machines on different floors to avoid people bringing in water themselves. So if it would be helpful, I can provide a kind of update in terms of elemental bits. More than happy to do that. I just kind of kept it fairly general. And also maybe a reg rating against each of those items might help as well.
Would the overall measure be just reduction in plastic within the building? So is that a key measure that you can be tracking?
It's kind of difficult to measure it because the staff tend to bring stuff in generally. So what we're trying to achieve with this is a culture change. We're trying to encourage people to give them the opportunities not to have to use plastic.
Okay, so that's like optional to have a follow-up and then Councillor Dean.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, I mean, it's very clear that lots of stuff is going on, but presumably there are some measures of success for you in there, and I think it would be good for us to kind of to see and understand what those measures of success were and how we're doing on them. Obviously not now, don't expect it tonight, but maybe in the future or for next time we come back.
Yeah, I'm happy to bring back more detailed report for the next meeting if that would help.
You'll probably think I'm going to sound flippant now. Sorry, I was probably born that way, but I think all this nitty-gritty is not where we should be at. The council should have been doing this 10 years ago, frankly. And considering you think about council's role in explaining to the consumers what they need to do, I'm absolutely amazed that the council's never done anything itself. And I mean, first of all, why aren't you saying you won't empty the bins at the council? You'll only empty them every 2 weeks from now on. And if anyone leaves anything off on their desk, then they get a fine for 80 quid. Why is it that you're not doing everything you do to destroy the freedom of people? Why are we sitting here with council officers, with their single-use plastic?
It's not single-use, I recycle.
That is a single-use plastic bottle,
Okay.
and it's not recycled, hasn't been recycled, I know it's a Coca-Cola bottle.
Thank you.
But my points are, they really are serious, that after 10 years, when, I think it was 2004, that the Labour Council brought in food box bins in Ravensbury as a test, which I thought was magnificent. The council hasn't done anything about it now, it's 15 years later, so we shouldn't be in the nitty-gritty. You should be into treating staff like you treat residents, and I think you'll find that you'll get because I read all this stuff. If it's changing the mind of residents, it'll change the mind of staff.
Okay, thank you very much for your contribution. And Councillor Mundy.
Do you think I can have some answers to that?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. But after that, I would like then to go to Councillor Mundy. So
I'd like to know why staff are treated differently to residents.
Well, it's interesting because a lot of the colleagues that I work with and talk to, I've been here quite a long time, they are local residents anyway, and part of the reason that we've implemented some of these measures is because people have commented on perhaps a lack of facilities in the building that we've had historically. So we've taken those on board and we're dealing with those. Interesting the point you make about the cleaning. We're looking at our contracts and potential savings over a period of time, and one of the things that we're already doing is to reduce down the bins on the floors in order to make the cleaning more efficient and effective. One of the cleaning measures that we might look at in the future as part of our ongoing savings or future savings is to reduce down the frequency of the cleaning. So those kind of factors have already been looked at from an operational point of view, accepting that it's a big building. Despite some of our colleagues being really keen on doing that, it's also really difficult for a large majority of the staff. They don't like the change, so actually we introduce those changes quite slowly and quite sensitively, so that we don't get people complaining and suggesting that we kind of demising their quality and terms and conditions around the environment that they work in.
Well, absolutely, and I just wonder why residents get treated that way.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mundy, and then we'll move on to the next agenda item.
Thank you, Chair. It's really fantastic to see the progress made since the report. And I just wanted to add the committee's background. So the final report was ultimately driven around a behaviour change campaign, and it was for this committee itself to work with officers to come up and finalise those metrics where we can. Rag rating seems an important step. And also it was one of the first actual task groups that surveyed staff and asked them what they want, and all what we've done with recommendations were actions from their feedback and can be directly associated with that. And on that, one of the issues which were raised and including recommendations which while don't directly relate to plastic, do relate to waste, was food waste. And I'd be interested to hear a bit more about that. Just one, there's a bit of clarification from the note that Charles leads on, I think, and just to clear up, do we have a scheme in place? Where is it at? And again, further clarification on the parity of recycling and waste collection across all our sites and where you are with that. It'd be fantastic.
So in terms of the food waste for the Civic Centre, that's been piloted in some of the 24 hours of operation. So we've got a CCTV centre, we've got colleagues within CLCH that work on the top 2 floors of the building. So we're trialling that on a pilot basis, primarily just to see what the volumes are, Councillor, because at the moment the general feel is that there isn't a huge amount of food waste that's generated within the building. The catering contractor is concessionary, they deal with their own food waste, but there's a balance between providing the service and how frequently or what kind of volume of waste is going to be generated. So we're doing that in a small number of areas just to pilot that, see how that goes. In terms of the wider stuff around us and the general residents, I'm not really sure in terms of the strategy for that. I know certainly it's been rolled out across the borough. I know the volumes have gone up in terms of collection.
Oh, sorry, I wasn't asking about that. Just it was more just about parity in the other sites, because I know it was raised as some sites,
yeah,
as you were referenced before, you looked at recycling and making sure everyone had every bits, and they, more importantly, they knew how to use the site.
So the first stage of that has been we've provided Ian and our colleagues with a list of the operational buildings. Charlie's then going out with colleagues from E&R to do some analysis in terms of what recycling is currently going on, what recycling might be viable in terms of operating. And bear in mind, some of those sites are fairly small, some of the sites are fairly large, so one size fits all might not be appropriate. But Charles is dealing with that, and that will be part of the progress report that we bring as part of the next site.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that's okay for that there. Thank you. We'll move on to item number 7. But does anybody need a comfort break? Anything? Comfort break? Anybody?
You can we talk much about the room?
Absolutely. Just say nice things.
No, not about the topics. Only about football.
So 93% of anything that comes into the room is recyclable. 93% of it should be recycled. That is the only aim of this council. And no one does anything about it. Shouldn't be going to go for
I like it, so I'll carry on.
Did anyone see Obama's quote today on the calling out
analysis on chemical where they've gone from paying for it themselves to making those authorities.
Well, there'll be the fossil recycling scheme that comes in due course, and that will cost councils money. It makes sense.
Do you have anyone in your library?
Are you ready to carry on? Thank you very much. Okay, so we are going on to item number 7, which is budget and business plan. So I'll just hand over to Caroline Holland, and we'll then move on to questions from the panel.
Thank you, Chair. So it's clearly when this report went to Cabinet, we weren't aware there was going to be a general election on the 12th of December. We may have thought there might be one coming, but certainly this was prepared, as I said, in advance of that, so I'll take you through what we have done and give an update to the extent that I can as to what that now means going forward. So clearly we normally at this time of year will roll forward and update the NTFS, looking at some of the changes, looking at the impact that has on us. And certainly just in early September we had an announcement of the settlement. We had hoped that we would have a 3-year settlement, and we would have a review of the business rates, and we would have a fair funding review. What we have had come forward is a 1-year settlement. The fair funding review has been deferred to, at the earliest now, 21-22, and the business rates reset has also been deferred to 21-22, and the 75% introduction of business rates has also been deferred. The pilot that London was a part of, where it was able to pool its business rates and keep sort of the 75% element, has also been ended. So we're not able to take advantage of the surpluses of the monies that we had there as well. And just looking at some of the assumptions that we had previously made around pay, inflation, they've also changed, so we've updated those in the report there as well. The government did announce some additional grants, so the settlement that we did get was better than we had anticipated, but we just don't have full details. The full details of what that will mean. We were expecting a budget on the 7th of November and the announcement of the individual grants and funding that we would get early December. Clearly that is now at risk. So we're just trying to see what implications that has for us as an authority and timing and when we need to bring further updates through, and also then for scrutiny panels to be able to review what's been proposed. So we had an update of the impact on the NTFS, so set out on page 37 in paragraph 2.12.2, just shows some of the changes within pay inflation. We've now gone from 1 to 2%. The trade unions have put in a pay claim of 10%, so we have not built that in. Just also the council tax yield, we had assumed or a 2% increase in council tax going forward. Consultation paper, technical consultation paper allows for a 2% increase in council tax and a 2% adult social care reset. And the government assumes all authorities will do the 2% council tax increase and the 2% adult social care preset. For the first time in many years, in para 211, we actually have some growth for our medium-term plans, and part of that is we have an issue with our dedicated schools grant not being sufficient to fund the pressures, particularly around our special education needs children and the increase in our education and social care plans. We've also had, as part of the response to Grenfell, so mentioned earlier this evening, the response to how we as a local authority respond to emergencies, and staff, facilities and expertise that we need. Arrangements have been agreed by Chief Execs in conjunction with the London Fire Brigade and Merton planning teams. We need to sort of increase our ability to be able to respond to those, as well as our lovely friend Microsoft have a different way of charging for the licenses that we use for our software, so increased pressures there. Last year, when we brought the budget to you, there was a shortfall of savings against the targets that had been set previously. So on page 41, that detail is set out, and departments have been asked to come forward with further proposals against those shortfall targets. So departments have come forward with proposals, and the details are set out in Appendix 4, along with the draft quality assessments as well for you to consider and report back on. I think of particular interest to this panel is also we've got some growth bids for capital. So on page 87 shows the detail from 2021 to 23-24 of the growth bids, particularly of, as I said, of particular interest to this panel. The majority of bids were for 23-24, but certainly when Chris and the department have reviewed the requirements, they've sort of come forward with some bids for proposals. So we then show the detail of what that capital programme is for you to have a look at as well. All that then culminates with still a gap for 2021 of 2.9 million. So we had been hoping to come back to December with a further update on what that meant, some further savings, some potential further growth proposals, but we're just seeing how that now plays in with the election and further to see the times of when that may happen. For queries on the individual details, President's team will be able to answer those. Let's take any questions on the sort of the governing reports.
Okay, so Councillor Dean was
So,
beginning first.
yeah, so at the council meeting, you said that there was an underspend stroke surplus of 11 million quid, I think, this year. And that's correct, isn't it?
Not this year. We had a surplus of 7.7 million on the general fund against our expenditure, and we had a business rates surplus from the pilot of 3.8 million.
Yeah. So when we say let's work out what this year is, ending March 31st, 2019. Yes. So you have £11 million more than you expected. These figures here are based on expecting that the £11 million would have been spent, aren't they?
No.
Right, so you've already taken out 11 million quid from here.
So within, as part of closing the accounts for 2018-19, the £3.8 million surplus from the business rates pilot was put into the balancing the reserve budget. So on page...
Yeah, that's fine, that's understood.
So that's shown to be used during 2021.
So if we had, let's say you were going to spend 100,000 last year, mathematically, and you had 7,600 left over, are these figures here based on 100,000 or are they based on 93,000, 92,300?
Well, don't forget you've got outturn for 1920 to factor in before we look at the budget for 2021. We have a deficit on our dedicated schools grant, which we're having to set aside monies for. So 3.3 million of that surplus last year was put aside to offset that deficit. That deficit is assumed to be over 9 million this year. So we're having to find monies to fund that, subject to consultation on the DSG as well.
Okay, but I just want to be clear here. So the figures initially, when they were put together, these were put together at least 3 or 4 months ago, weren't they? We started to see this.
Yes.
The first time that you announced the surplus was in March.
No.
Okay, when was it announced?
We have been reporting on an underspend towards the latter months of 2018-19, and as part of finalising those accounts, that was then reported to Cabinet, to Scrutiny, to General Standards and General Purposes Committee.
So are you saying that that's already factored in, these numbers?
Elements of it are, yes.
Okay, so Councillor Pritchard caught mine first, then I'll go to Councillor Fairclough.
Thank you. I was going to ask 2 quick questions. One, which is page 34, net finances required. Where are they intended to be sourced from? And then, oddly, which I think is probably linked to Councillor Dean's, on page 30 you talk about negative reserves, and on page... And on page 35 again you mentioned reserves. I was going to refer to the council meeting that Councillor Dean did as well, and ask you to give an explanation of how we spend reserves, we use reserves, surplus, and we use inter-year sort of balancing to go into reserves and over the course of a number of years. So two different areas, if that's okay.
So page 34, the net financing need. So that means that's to be funded from borrowing, whether that's external or internal. So at the moment we are borrowing internally, so we use our cash balances to fund the capital programme. Depending on how those sums grow or our cash balances reduce, then we may need to go and borrow externally. But clearly the rates have gone up recently, so there is a bigger impact then on revenue going forward. With regard to balances, so as I said, the dedicated schools grant has gone into deficit. Current projections over the next 5 years show that deficit increasing and unlikely to reduce.
Sorry, apologies for not being clear. It's more in principle how reserves and underspend and how you use them to balance, because I know that questions were asked at the last full council meeting, which implied that we should have spent our 8 million underspend or 11 million underspend, depending on which of the two factors you use, should have been used to offset policing, or should pay for policing or pay for other things within that given year. Whereas then I've been subsequently been told that actually we then put it into reserves and offset over the MTFS. Would you care to explain how we actually use underspends in a given year in actuals?
So it does depend on, so I said the majority elements of the underspend went into balancing budget reserve, and on page 95, partway down, you can see that we are using all of that 8.6 million to actually reduce the impact and therefore need for more savings in 2021. We are also using some of those reserves for transformation because of some of the services we still need to change and make sure that we're doing things the best way that we can, so we're not seen to be behind the curve, as it were, in certain elements of what we need to do.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Councillor Becker.
Thank you, Chair. Two quick questions. The first one is about the assumptions on the pay and prices inflation, particularly the 2% pay inflation. On page 23, you mentioned that the government July announcement that they'll be looking at pay increases in excess of the current level of inflation. I know we've gone to 2%. My concern is that the actual public sector pay increases may be higher than that. So I just wondered if you could expand on the thinking behind 2%. And my second question is about the ASC precept. So I think my reading of page 31 is these figures assume that we won't use the adult social care precept, whereas the government, of course, does. And I wondered why we're chosen not to use.
So the government did announce for public sector staff pay increases above 2%. However, they were for staff that, so it was for nurses, for teachers, not necessarily for local government workers. So we assumed that local government workers would get a lower pay rise, which is why we've done it at 2%, and not what the other parties are getting. With regard to the council tax, so the table in 271 was sort of the current assumptions. The precept is ring-fenced for adult social care. So we are saying 1.9 million that would be raised from an adult social care precept would be utilised for that service to the extent that the outcome of the consultation allows us to have an adult social care precept. So that's a specific question that's been asked. So it could be that a 4% council tax increase is what then comes out of that, and they're all doing two. So that's why we haven't built that in at this stage to know the outcome of that consultation. Okay, Councillor Owen?
Yeah, thank you. First one is about the London Park paddling pool, so looking at some of the capital spends for this department. There seems to be two options. I'm hoping you're going to go for the option that includes the works at Wimbledon Park, because lots of residents in that part of the world, in Wimbledon Park and the wider Wimbledon area, were very frustrated when the glorious weather we had over the summer and the park's paddling pools were closed. So can you guarantee that be in the capital spend as the preferred option? And my second question is relating to bridges and highways maintenance to bridges. Looking at the capital spend for that, it doesn't seem very much given we have a major bridge that's currently needing lots of repairs. Is the budget enough to cover the cost of the bridge repair?
So, firstly on the Wimbledon Park paddling pool, it is a little bit confusing on page 87 because we've got a number of lines there relating to water facilities, water play features. We've got a line there which is new interactive water play feature at Wimbledon Park, 6,000. And that's the estimated cost of a replacement facility. The next two lines are relating to the remainder of the facilities in the borough. And what you have is the first option is the replacement of the other 6 facilities, which are being replaced at an existing condition, so water and no interactive facilities, no features like you have at Wimbledon. The second option is to move away from that and to have 3, if you like, state-of-the-art facilities in the borough, but only 3. So, assuming we replace Wimbledon, assuming we continue to retain the one at Camberwell Park, a third facility somewhere else in the borough at a higher standard than the current 6 that we have. And so that's a set of options really for members to consider through this budget setting process as we go forward. I don't know whether Caroline wants to pick up the point around bridge replacement.
So certainly, as part of the monitoring report which we took to the 14th of October Cabinet, there was reference in there to if there's additional funding required for Bishopsford Bridge, depending on the outcome of the reports that are being undertaken, we can call the corporate contingency, which is currently in 22-23 and is completely, but it depends on where the responsibility lies for that.
Just on the play parks and the interactive water features, firstly, are you saying that one option would be to keep everything as is, as in keep the interactive play park in town in a Byfix Marsh and then keep the paddling pools elsewhere? Or is it, then the second option is to get rid of the paddling pools and have 2 other interactive sites somewhere else?
So let me be clear. The first line is to replace the Wimbledon facility, which is closed, which won't open unless we either replace it or carry out very substantial repairs akin to almost replacing it. That's 226,000. The second line there is to leave Tamworth exactly as it is, because it is a state-of-the-art interactive facility, but the other 6 facilities to replace those like for like. So continue with a water feature, but not interactive, so just a paddling pool, because they're coming to the end of their lives as well, and each year they're requiring more and more repair and maintenance. And then the third is to recognise that public demand and expectations are changing, and people do want more interactivity, they don't just want to turn up and paddle. We have the Tamworth facility, we did have the Wimbledon facility, and so this would be to move towards 3 more state-of-the-art facilities in the borough and close the other static water facilities.
Is there any plans to kind of consult with residents to see what they think would be best?
We would do, yes.
Councillor Mundy and then Councillor Tash.
Thank you, Chair. Continuing on the water, interactive water features, and just referencing the play and pitch strategy from the last feedback, the report found that in the east of the borough there was an absence of these facilities. Would that third facility ideally be placed in the east of the borough to ensure those residents benefit from those facilities?
There's no presumption about location at the moment at all. So that's completely open.
Can I just follow up on that? This is going back sort of high-level strategy, but in the sense, we have a commitment to address the east-west split. And my question to that, understanding that there is no preference, and it may sound quite basic, but why is there no preference? If we're driving to resolve that difference, what are the levers and influences and the next steps to ensure that, because we've got this report, we know there's an absence of facility, how can we ensure that we then do that to meet our standard and commitments in the other way?
So I think these are slightly different from playing pitch strategies. These aren't sporting facilities as such. We're talking about paddling pools, but they are the sharp end of children getting involved in some sort of activity, and it's useful to have that. But we recognise that we've got a facility in Wimbledon, we've got one in Figsmarsh, so the natural location would be further east if we were going to have them equally spread across the borough. But we've got no presumption, as I said, in terms of where they might be.
Thank you, Chair. I wondered if I could ask about one of the new ENR savings proposals, or actually it's a revenue increase. Page 73 is the property management realigning rental income projects. This is about reviewing the levels of rents to the tenants of council commercial property. I wondered if you could give a bit more detail on what type of organisations are likely to be affected by that, because the quality impact assessment on page 119, now starting on page 199, in terms of measuring the impact, there's no data available. It just occurs to me that certain types of organisation that might be affected might have an equality impact that we can't see here.
James might want to add some detail, but the first point I'd make is that this is a reflection of the reality. So this isn't a proposal to increase rents any further than they have been. The money is there. It's realigning the budgets to reflect the fact that we are receiving this income because we have been successful in rent reviews, in low arrear levels and in low void levels. The majority of the occupiers are commercial tenants. And I think that's probably reflected in the equalities impact assessment. If it isn't already, it will be. I don't know whether James wants to add any more detail on that.
Just it's customary within commercial leases that there's a provision for a rent review. Most generally those rent reviews are upwards annually, and they are commercial tenants either on our industrial estates, some of our retail premises, and the bulk of our properties do fall into that category. The leases for community centres, etc., are different from the commercial leases. Hence, this is really dealing with commercial properties rather than any specialist property arrangement.
Okay, looking at other department savings proposed, page 72, parking services has popped up again. For the benefit of the public, can you explain what the difference between Band B, Band A, BCN charges is, and can you sort of outline whether or not this is just another attack on motorists who want to innocently get about the borough?
So, just in terms of finance, Band A PCN charges range between £80 and £130. So minor offences at £80 and more serious offences at £130. Band B are £60 and £110. Most of central London and larger parts of outer London now are in Band A. All bus lane offences and all moving traffic offences are in Band A. And many authorities, many of our neighbours, have applied to TEC and the Secretary of State for authority to move to Band A because they continue to suffer levels of congestion and non-compliance. So the case is to be proven, and it's to be proven in Merton that we believe that the current PCN level, which hasn't changed for many years, is insufficient deterrent to reduce congestion and to tackle many of the problems that this panel have heard about in the recent past around climate change and air quality and vehicle movement. So we wish to present that case to TEC and to the Secretary of State for first to Council.
Okay, thank you for that. With all these various increases and existing increases planned for parking services, do you have a figure, which I can't see in this report, for the total revenue predicted for parking services, and where in the top 10 of councils across the country does that place us in terms of the amount of recharged motorists in this borough?
I don't, but I'm sure we could provide that outside the meeting.
Can I just add one thing to that? I think it's a very interesting point you made about people haven't changed their attitudes. But if you look within some of the yellow boxes, they're impossible to see where the yellow box ends on Hartfield Crescent, for example. We actually have to go into it before you can see the end of it, and therefore lots of people get stuck there. Clearly, Kingswood Road is extremely difficult. The Hartfield Road bus lane breaks the highway code. If someone drove like that in a driving test, they fail. These things are set up to raise cash, and that's why we keep raising cash. And the council will say, well, they're all legal. Of course they're legal. It's very easy to make these things legal. But it's about time. It's got nothing to do with congestion. The Hartfield Road bus lane, buses have to go from the left-hand side to the right-hand side, to the left-hand side, to the right-hand side, then the left-hand side. That is not done, that's silent, because of good practice. It's done to ensure that the bus lane is put there to ensure that when people turn left into Beulah Road, they have to cut across that bus lane, and too many of them, hundreds of thousands of pounds, is spent people getting into the right lane, which the left-hand lane, which they should do following the highway code. So Hartfield Crescent and Hartfield Road bus lanes, they are there to make cash. They make millions of pounds, and it's unacceptable that this council works that way. As you rightly said, it doesn't change anything in congestion, and it has not changed behaviour because they're set up like a snake in a ladder's board. Time it changed. But time to put the residents first, which is what councils are meant to do. I know the answers before you give them, but go on. Are they legal?
I'm not too sure what the question was specifically.
I don't think I said I was going to have a question. I thought I want to make a point.
Thank you. A quick one. I wondered the saving on page 82 and page 83, why it's the reason it's been deferred.
It's deferred because at the present time that income isn't achievable in the next financial year, so we're moving it back a year. The RSP, Regulatory Services Partnership, is going through a huge transformation. We've absorbed them onto the staff shortly after the Richmond service came over. Significant IT changes, significant relocation of staff and changing in work practices. So until that's concluded, and we've appointed the Commercial Business Development Manager, we're not confident that we'll be able to achieve that income level, so it's prudent to move it a year.
So something I just wanted to get a bit of clarity over. In the capitals allocation, there seems to be about 1.5 million for over 3 years for the Wimbledon Public Realm, and I just wondered what that was for, and was it part of the regeneration, or is it things on top of it?
So it's principally in response to the Wimbledon Area Master Plan and the works that we anticipate there, but I'm sure James can put more detail on that.
Yeah, through the Wimbledon Master Plan process, there's a desire to improve a lot of public spaces. Although there's a capital allocation in the budget, is actually community infrastructure levy. So it's coming from development to invest in the streets around the world.
Okay, thank you. Question about revenues and capital. It's a more of a generic question, but I'll use an example of street lighting. Are there any capital spends listed in the forward programme in the NTFS that could be brought forward or accelerated that could have a consequent reduction of revenue spend in future years? So, for instance, more energy efficient lighting, the lower electricity bills going forwards, because electric prices are going up. Is that something that we could consider here as an option to bring forward street lighting spend by a couple of years and get it all done in one go?
My immediate response is probably not, because we've invested a huge sum of capital in LED lighting, and we've got the bulk of those dealt with. There are some more to be dealt with, but we can move as fast as the capacity of our contractor. We're happy to go away and explore whether that might be the case. So immediately I would suggest not. I don't know whether James and Paul have got any.
Thank you. Yes, we've completed quite a big rollout over the last 3 years of LED. The remaining lights, we're getting rid of all the orange sodium lights, so they're gone. There's LEDs everywhere else. Where there's still the old-fashioned, slightly old-fashioned lights there, called Cosmos, they're actually quite energy efficient anyway. Not as great as LEDs, but still good and still got that life left in them. So that's a waste of resource to switch them out now. As and when some fail, we'll replace them with LED, but there's no point in clearing everything to LED at the moment.
Any further comments? Councillor Mundy?
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to understand the future programme of procurement, because I noticed, I think it's CS11, there was provision to remove one permanent post from procurement. Is that a need? I'm just trying to understand, is that a need that based on assessment that we no longer need to fill, or do we have any procurement programmes coming up that we may need to bring that post back into existence?
So we had a new procurement strategy. We're anticipating quite a lot of major contracts being relet, which they hadn't been for quite some time. So that's why we brought additional capacity in. So we're having to then release some of that capacity and no longer needing those resources. So that's the basis of that member staff or the post no longer being required.
Okay, if there's no further comments, then we'll... Do you want to make a recommendation?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, the recommendation is we're not going to propose to get rid of your money raising idea for parking charges, but all I would add as a reference is that if you do go ahead and get this permission from London Council / Public Transport, that's commensurate with that. There needs to be a review of all these locations that are giving rise to these penalty charges and see whether or not signage or the layout is appropriate, because this just looks like more money raising, whereas it would be better to actually bring down the number of so-called offences and stop penalising people. So we're not going to stop saying the recommendation is added to this, go away and review all the locations and see if we can make it better for motorists so they'll actually give rise to PCNs.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Just to be clear, you also want a comparative study of money that we're bringing through cars compared to other boroughs to see if we're in the top 10, as you put it. Is that correct?
Yes, that's also what I like, because that's another thing. You keep mentioning other boroughs and how much they're doing. It'd be nice to have that information presented to us. My gut feeling suggests that we're rising rapidly up the top league table of councils raising money through parking.
It'd be useful to know, because the last 6 months has been quite heated on this, so it'd be nice to know whether or not we are fleecing car owners in the way that you say, or we're not.
Well, Sutton and I here raised only about $1 million, whereas we're raising much more.
Okay, Councillor David, sorry.
To help us consider that recommendation, I wondered if it would be possible to confirm whether things like the yellow boxes and other parking measures were regularly reviewed anyway, and also the potential costs of an entire borough consideration of those as part of this recommendation.
So can you let us know if they're reviewed? Is there an ongoing programme of review for these things set up already?
Well, we check the signs and lines. Sometimes they're stolen on a regular basis. Some of our parking signs are stolen, so we have to replace them. Other than if the layout of the road changes, we wouldn't change the layout of the yellow box, for example, but we would repaint it as and when required. But it's only if the environment changes that we would need to review the traffic management order and the arrangements on site.
So there isn't a regular programme of review then, it's just as and when it's needed?
What I'm saying, it wouldn't be necessary. Unless the road layout changes, there would be no need to review the yellow box.
Councillor Butler.
Can I just check on that point? Is it ever the case that certain environmental changes would happen to traffic income and congestion in those areas that were the original basis for putting those enforcement areas in that may change in the future. Is there no way of reviewing that? Is there no normal way of kind of evaluating whether that's still the case?
If the circumstances change on the ground, then yes, we would review the need for
How would you know if circumstances have changed if you weren't reviewing them regularly?
I may be not making myself clear. What I'm saying is if the road layout changed, then we would need to review whether the yellow box was still required.
But
We would be responsible for the road layout change.
Unless I'm misunderstanding this, we're not saying necessarily if the road layout has changed, but if the say a sign has fallen down, or if the yellow box isn't as yellow as it once was, how do we know these things are like that? If you know, if we're not checking them.
And we are checking that exactly.
Okay.
So we have highways inspectors who check that the signs are still there.
Okay.
The lines are painted.
But I want to make a proposal.
Sorry, can we just go to Councillor Richard first? Thank you.
Sorry, I thought Councillor Butler may have, I'm not sure, I might have misunderstood what he was saying, but I thought he was talking about within a set of systems approach that a change of something outside our borough will have an indirect or direct impact on the traffic flow within our borough. And therefore, even if the roads in a specific location don't change, the throughput of traffic, because of an externality, the closure of a train station in Sutton or whatever, will change. And therefore, if we're not constantly reviewing that traffic, we're not going to understand whether or not the factors and the criteria which led to that original furniture, or whatever you want to call it, is extant. And therefore, a review, even when the road doesn't change, is necessary.
You said it way better than I did.
Councillor
I'm sorry, I just wanted to come back to the potential cost implications of the whole borough review of every such thing.
Well, I'd look to Paul, but I suspect we have to go away and get a figure on that.
So, off the top of my head, I don't know. We do review the borough roads in terms of road safety. So if there's accident stats, accident hotspots, police reports, that leads us to assess whether junctions of bits of road need investment. We don't look at it from how existing the other bits are performing, unless it's a road safety issue.
So one thing I'd like to add is that the council review Hertford Road bus lane because it is not the natural course of the buses. It's there to catch people turning left. The buses naturally want to be on the right, and I ask you to review that and put the bus lane where it should be, where the bus drivers want it.
Okay, then that might be a bit separate. So can we go back to what the actual recommendations? Do you have official wording for that so we can have a vote on it? What's the official wording for that?
That's a good thing. Okay, let's summarise the official wording. So with the saving item proposed on page 7, let me go back to that. 72. ENV 1920-01, that will it should only go ahead with the proviso that a review of key locations which give rise to PCNs are reviewed to see whether or not the design or layout or the signage is actually appropriate. Otherwise, this is just a money-raising scheme. So,
I was with you until you added in the money raising scheme. It makes it a bit divisive and a bit not in the spirit of what I think you're trying to achieve here.
Okay, let's take that money raising bit then. It seems unfair on the
All those in favour of the proposal?
Can I just clarify
the intention of motion?
You said before we make that change, would it be alongside that change that if you could guarantee that these reviews are being taken place, maybe it could come here as an item?
Yes, that's that in isolation, yeah, thank you. Yeah, let's have that.
You've got to recap it.
What is it?
I think we have to kind of amend what you're saying then. So what are you actually saying?
Okay. Yeah, I should have prepared something before. I only thought of it during the meeting. So, okay, so this savings item is quite contentious. It looks like just an opportunity to miss money. Okay.
Just the words of the motion.
Just the words of the reference, okay. So, for this panel recommends that this proposed saving be accepted on the proviso that a review of the applications giving rise to these PCNs is checked and reviewed, e.g. signage, road layout, markings, etc., to ensure that they are correct and not unfairly penalising residents. And this to be done and brought back to this committee for review.
So that's the
Everybody clear?
Yeah, I'll second that. Yeah.
Okay. I'll second that. Now, would you like to vote on the motion? All those in favour, please raise your hands. And that's carried. Nobody against unless someone's secretly under the table. Okay, good. Not there, well done. So that's that. Next item of the agenda is item 8, please. And we have Paul and Tara presenting the Bishopsford Road Bridge update.
That's chaired by Dobbins and ably supported by Paul and Tara. Members have got a report in front of them and we're also contributing the newsletter that went out to all the residents. Just by way of sort of background, the bridge had some working on it as a part of the planned maintenance programme, which was scheduled to take place from April to July this year. However, during June, some heavy rainfall caused flooding of the London. Initially, that had the impact of flooding some properties, but subsequently, 4 days later, that had an impact on the bridge itself, which caused collapse of the bridge. We're acutely aware of the inconvenience that that's causing to local residents. And this report is sort of setting out what we're doing both in terms of practical interim measures to ensure that residents are still able to travel through the area, but also what we're doing in terms of the cause and more importantly what we're doing to look at the reopening of the bridge. I should say that it did result in the Council Civil Contingency Plan being implemented, and I want to thank colleagues and also forbearance for residents during that period. The collapse of the bridge considered as we commissioned a piece of work to look at the cause of that. But what we do know is it caused significant cracks in the middle arch and a significant scarring in the northern arch. That's if you're coming from FutureMerton hub, it's the furthest arch in the bridge, which caused the bridge to partially collapse, and therefore there's a significant amount of both interim work that needed to take place. An important element of that was that we had to ensure that the bridge was underpinned. There was special injection material in the middle arch to stabilise it, and also there was work on the northern arch to ensure that the underpinnings of the footbridge was undertaken. That's an important element to understand, because without doing that we weren't able to then start the process of investigating the structural the integrity of the bridge to allow specialist contractors to go in and assess what needs to be done next. During the period of July through August that was taking place, it was impacted by periods of heavy rain where, due to the fact that we were having to inject specialist materials that required curing time, the work took longer than anticipated. And again, during that period of time, we were acutely aware that local residents were having to use alternative routes. Part of that was that there were significant impacts on the bus services, and Transport for London have rerouted many of the routes in the area. And also just to let panel members know that Transport for London are tendering an additional bus route that will go from Rosehill through London Road to Morden. Because one of the key comments from local residents was it wasn't one that was taking the residents to Morden Tube Station, and we'll report back as soon as that tender has been realised. But where we are in terms of access across the bridge, the actual pedestrian route is through Ravensbury Park. There's additional lighting we put there. There's been works done to the entrances, both to ensure that they're accessible, but also having to put in some guardrailings to stop scooters, particularly the delivery type scooter going through there, and we're also monitoring that through ANPR cameras. We're working with local schools and FutureMerton hub to make sure that local school children and those that are using it and attending the hub are their offer is there to go and take them through the best routes through there, and also to look at it, particularly as we're coming to the darker months in terms of community safety. Just also want to say in paragraph 2.8 we have referred to the reducing the wall to knee height. She corrected that to say that officers are considering the technical aspects of that, but we will need to consult more widely on that, as there's definitely a divergence of views, but we are seeking to take a safety audit on that. Between now and December, there's also the need to take out, if people are familiar with it, and there's a temporary dam, it's called a copper dam in the Northern Arch. That's been in place since the incident. That will need to come out as part of working with the environment agency to ensure that the flow of water through the bridge is improved, and that will be coming out in the coming weeks to ensure that, especially as we go into the winter period, that the flow of water is as free-flowing as possible. We've commissioned a piece of work that is looking back at contributory factors to the event, and that's something that is entirely independent, and it will look at everything from working methodology, the weather situation, and events upstream. We're also working with FM Conway as our contractor to look at the options for the bridge moving forward, and that is one where it's looking at everything from a repair through to a replacement bridge, and they will come back before Christmas with options on that, and that will be based on both cost and longevity, etc. But we've asked them to do that as speedily as possible, and also as thoroughly as possible to ensure that we get a robust report back prior to Christmas. That will allow us to consider what the best options are. That will necessitate taking a report to Cabinet in due course with those options, and that will be something that we can't at this moment in time say what the timeline for the implementation of the option will be, because a repair may be far speedier than a replacement, but we don't want to prejudice the outcome at this moment in time. We are truly aware that crucial to that is actually keeping local residents updated. So we've committed to doing a monthly newsletter. The first one that went out during October, September, and we'll be doing one later this month, and that's also being supplemented by regularly updating the web page to make sure that things that happen in between those newsletters and local residents are aware of. We're also, as I say, working with the Tooting Mitcham Hub to ensure that they, in terms of their programme of activities, are aware of the bridge and the works that are taking place. We're also seeking to put more permanent railings at each side of the bridge to ensure that the safety of the site is enhanced, and also we'll use that as an opportunity to put large print versions of the newsletter there so residents are able to get informed of what's happening. Paul and myself attended the Morgan Community Forum on the 16th of October and took questions there, and we're happy to go to whatever forward needed in due course. And we're also keen to make sure that we keep the website updated, and we're also liaising with our colleagues in Sutton to ensure that residents in Sutton, as it's just over the border, are also informed of what's going on through the appropriate channels. In terms of timetable, over the next couple of months, in addition to getting the reports on the future options and looking back, we'll also continue to have weekly monitoring of the conditions of the track to ensure that they're suitable during winter months, that the paths are open, that they're clean, and that the foliage is appropriately cut back. And we'll keep residents updated on all of this through the web pages. We are working with FM Conways as our temp contractor on the final solution, and the financial implications of that will come through the formal report that is submitted in due course. To say that Bishopsford Road Bridge is a key risk factor on the corporate risk register. I myself and colleagues meet weekly to progress, and we're seeking to do this as speedily but as robustly as possible to ensure that we get the right solution, but we also do it in a fashion that is both effective in terms of the future options and does it as speedily as possible. But one of our key drivers is to make sure that we keep local residents updated.
Any comments? Anybody else?
Okay, question. Originally, I know you mentioned you didn't really want to comment on what caused it, but do you have a sense of embarrassment that the original intention of the bridge works was to do strengthening works And the ironic thing was, strengthening works have actually caused the bridge to collapse. And secondly, this issue of the historic wall that needs to be taken down. Is it not historic? Okay, some people say it's historic. So, yeah, I hear it might be historic. If you were to take it down, what's the intention of replacing it like for like whenever the works are finished?
In terms of the causation, I think it's entirely appropriate that we wait until we get the report back. It would be inappropriate for me to make any comments on cause, and that independent report will allow us to have a conclusion drawn. And as I say, it's based on not just the working methodology that it's undertaken, but also the events on the river itself. But I'll ask Paul if you can respond on the
in terms of the status of the wall, it is within the Waldo Valley Conservation Area. It is not listed, it doesn't appear to be that historic, but we're getting a lot of mixed information now coming in via inquiries, via Twitter, etc. The intention is, should we decide to take it down or partially remove it, is to store the bricks, keep it, and if we need to put it back later, put it back later. The issue we've got at the moment is the footpath, the older footpath from the footbridge back to the road is behind a tall wall, it's completely hidden, it's dark, school kids and people who will be walking through there. The intention would be we're keeping bricks if we need to rebuild it all later once the bridge is built.
So Councillor Pritchard, no? Councillor Fairclough?
Thank you. I wanted to ask if there have been any learnings in relation to the Council's civil contingency plan and the activation of it.
I think the report looks at it, in terms of learning, I think what we have realised is that we need to have while both this incident is ongoing, that we have a specific civil contingency plan for the bridge. I think all the civil contingency plans are reviewed regularly by the corporate management team. In fact, this is the corporate risk register reflects that level of oversight. But additionally, there's a bespoke, Tara can speak more to that than I can.
Not to say much more, but yes, there is a bespoke civil contingencies planning out just for the Bishopsford Bridge area. And as the Director of Finance referred to earlier, there's been a good branch review of the Council's civil contingencies approach post-rainfall for major incidents as well.
So, I think residents have been extremely patient. They recognise that this was a natural disaster, but I'm not convinced that they feel that the information they've got back from council has been regular and open. And I don't think they're also convinced that the time it's taking. We recognise that FM Conway do look after bridges, but if they are such experts in bridges, why didn't they think about what the issues were going to be on the basis there is a huge amount of water to the right in Watermeads, a lot of water to the left, and we have a particular climate in this country, and recognising it being a distributor road, that all of that, it doesn't seem to me, and I accept we're waiting on reports, that they thought about it before, that they thought about it now, nor are they thinking about it in the future. I think the patience wears very, very thin, and the other political parties have recognised the fact that it was a natural disaster and done nothing about it. But there will come a time when you think, where is the sense of urgency here? Because I don't think residents see any sense of urgency. It's critical, the 280, the 118, it's critical that the bus services were sorted out straight away. It's critical that Transport for London thought about that before. I mean, the roads go more than thing now, 6 months later. And I still don't buy the thing about Southern Gas Networks. I don't believe that they had to do what they did in terms of the gas upgrading in Wandle Road at exactly the same time. I just don't buy into it. And I think the council has a duty, because it gives out permits to utilities, to think more broadly about this. Because quite simply, it's very easy to say we have a problem. The real problem is for residents trying to get in and out of that area constantly for many, many months. It's unreasonable. We talk about congestion, we talk about toxic air, we talk about how we could do the right things. I don't think the right things are being done. And I really think there needs to be a sense of urgency. And if Conway are going to be used in the future, a sort of confidence that just because they have contracts to build and maintain bridges doesn't mean that they do it properly. And I think that they should be hauled over the coals for this, and you need to find a specialist who can actually do the job rather than say they want to do the job.
Well, I think again, just going to say it would not be appropriate for me to comment on FM Conway's role on this because it will come out the independent review. In terms of the process of signing off, if the report identifies that there were things that need to be taken up, we will obviously have to take those on board. I take your point in terms of the sense of urgency, and certainly one of the comments, or many of the comments we've received from local residents is there doesn't seem to be a lot of activity. I think what we need to do is to improve the way that we let local residents know in terms of what is going to happen. A lot of work is going on out of necessarily eyesight because it's taking place either at River Bank or below. Some of that is technical, and a lot of it was examination. For example, the length of time it took to stabilise the bridge was by necessity because of the nature of those works. It didn't necessitate a lot of activity, and therefore quite reasonably the residents felt there wasn't a lot of activity despite the fact that something was going on. So I think we do need to improve our communications, and we should always sort of acknowledge that we can improve that. I think in terms of you mentioned about FM Conway's moving forward, part of the work that we are also undertaking is a quality assurance on the work that Conway submit in terms of options for the bridge moving forward. So with the technical in-house expertise, we'll also supplement that with external quality assurance, so that any options that they provide, we'll be able to test them in terms of compliance with need, but also against the quality of industry standards by having that independent analysis. And we are at pains to move this forward as fast as we can. And what we want to do is to have that honest dialogue with residents in terms of what's happening. And in our latest newsletters, we have confirmed that there won't be a lot of activity the residents will see on the bridge. Much of that is analysis going on through structural studies taking place, which may result on people being on site periodically, but then a lot of the work will take place back in the offices of our specialist contractors. And as I say, we're anticipating that it will be pre-Christmas that we will get the final back. What the nature of the options moving forward is, I wouldn't be able to say or comment on at this moment in time.
Okay, thank you. I think we'll move on to the next item. Anything else? So the next item is Town Centre Regeneration, and Paul is going to present again, and Daniel might move up the way.
Planning and preparation, I thought I was saying that to you.
Apologies for that. Can everyone hear okay if I hover around the mic? So this is part of the regular update on Town Centre Regeneration. The last time I presented to this panel, a lot of the focus was on Mitcham and Crawler's Woods, because they were the main projects at the time. This one tends to focus more on Wimbledon and Morton, which are now the current major projects, and some localised work we're doing too. So talking about a recap of what FutureMerton's role is in regeneration. We heard a lot earlier from Paul Quinn about the housing estate regeneration. Our role is very different, because actually we're not always the landowner, we're not always the funder, and in fact we're not always the ones who directly deliver it, the way Paul Quinn was talking earlier. The council's role really is certainly to set ambition in the agenda, for our places, and our places are very different across the borough. But our role really is, in FutureMerton, is as an enabler. We can set the plan and policy agenda, we can have conversations with landowners, we can actually bid for funding, but we're not the ones who directly go in and do everything. So really it's about encouragement and enabling. And very much like a place like Wimbledon. The market's already in Wimbledon, it's about how you manage that investment and get a better quality out of it, which is very different to Morden, where we're trying to create the market and get the interest. Also as a partner, we have to partner up with people to get things done. Paul mentioned partnership working on Clarion. In Morden, we're working in partnership with TfL. And actually we also work with our communities and business groups as well. They're all partners in a place. No one can drive forward a place, it's all working together. And then there are occasions where there is direct delivery. So for example, we are quite active now on local shopping parades, doing a lot of the facade treatment, shopfront improvements, and that is direct delivery. So we've recently done Morden parades back here, just finished Queen's Road in Wimbledon, currently working in College with High Street, and then there's Mitchell Creek Green and Hayden Roads to happen next year. Some of the challenges our town centres are facing, again, are kind of beyond council control. But for Merton, I thought, I see our challenges as managing growth. You've got places like Wimbledon where the office market is strong, where the transport is really good, where the reputation of the place is attracting people and encouraging growth. So you want to manage that growth in a sensitive way. We also want to promote quality. It's all very well promote development, but getting the right quality is key, because what we build lasts a long time. And then generally, future of the high streets. Retail is really struggling. It probably will never come back to where it was. As people, we've all reached peak stuff. We're not buying things anymore. But the future of high streets is really around experience and quality of place. It's about interacting with people. And that puts a completely different complexion on your streets and public spaces, what they're for, how they're used, and how they're managed. So we've reflected a lot of that in our plans for Morden and Wimbledon around public space and public life. So before we go forward, let's have a look back. Because actually the borough has changed before our eyes, and sometimes you don't realise it. So quite often we look at computer-generated images and fancy CGIs, but I'm not doing that here. We're using Google Street View because it doesn't lie. So let's just look back a bit and see what the council's regeneration activity has been achieving. This was College in 2014. In 2019, and that's Google Street View. So that's showing how the streetscape, the buildings, the businesses have all get themselves up through the council's regeneration activity and investment. Next in 2014, that is actually the town centre. It does look like a park, but a very traffic dominated one at that. And 2019, there's the transport's been enhanced with the new bus lane, the clock tower's been restored, there's been formal gardens built. We've really tried to give a bit of character to that place, albeit still within the traffic system it's in. How many people actually remember that building? Yeah. So, the French on the Bridge, as we all loved and known it as. It's a reclad, it's been reclad in natural stone and bronze, it's not white metal anymore, it has shop fronts, it has windows, you can actually see what's going on in the building. All of a sudden it's a much more engaging and active building. But it's a reclad, so it's all touch-ups, it's not full-on rebuilds. And again, Wimbledon Hill Road, this is over 2 years ago. You kind of forget we had the brutalist concrete office block on Wimbledon Hill Road, and it's easy to forget. And now it's probably the most favourite building in Wimbledon, so that's Wellington House. It's actually now complete, but this is Google Street View, so it's a bit out of date. So all of this demonstrates the work of the council's planning department, the regen department, communities, councillors, everyone trying to get behind shaping application by application. However, our ambition for the borough is bigger than that. We can't just deal with things by application. We've got to set the agenda for a whole complete place. So I'm just going to lead forward to some of our strategic plans. First of all, Future Wimbledon Master Plan. And in fact, we were planning to launch the consultation on this on Friday, but we've had advice from because of the general election, we will not be consulting on the new master plan until 13th of December. However, I will share with you one of the images and some of the key changes to the plan, which we will be consulting on. So there's been a lot of engagement in Wimbledon Master Plan. Some of the people room here been with us throughout it. From workshops to designs to collaborating in public space to trialling some street furniture, we've done it all really. And what we distill from that is 6 principles for the future of Wimbledon Town Centre. We want to celebrate Wimbledon. It is a pretty famous place in South West London. It's a pretty famous town globally. But that isn't really reflected in how you feel when you see the town centre. We want to learn from the heritage, and we've seen that from Wellington House. When you look and scratch beneath the surface, there's plenty to pick from. However, we have to grow Wimbledon. It's where the office market is, it's where the jobs are, it's where the cultural mix is for Merton. That needs to be grown and sustained, otherwise you'll watch Wimbledon go backwards, and we don't want that. The railway itself causes a lot of severance. It's a huge railway, cuts the town in two, there's one bridge. It's always been a problem for traffic and pedestrians and cyclists, and that needs looked at. And then the network of open spaces and public spaces needs looked at. So from the master plan, what's changed is we did have 10 priorities that came from the public last time. And working through the plan, we also reflected on the feedback that it was actually quite detailed, there was too much in that plan. And we found that a lot of the priorities actually overlapped with each other anyway. So we've distilled it more down into 5 key priorities. One is design quality of the buildings, public realm and public spaces, urban greening and sustainability, the future of the high street itself, how Wimbledon becomes more adaptable and flexible to different businesses. And businesses we don't know yet, because no one knows what's going to happen in 5 years, let alone 10. And then the stationary railway, really that's about how cross-rail 2 may integrate into Wimbledon. So that'll give you a flavour as what's going to come up for the consultation in December, and we'll certainly feed that back to this panel in due course and Borough Plan Advisory Committee. This is one of the images. It's actually not the master plan end state. What this highlights is the current planning applications and pre-apps that are going on in Wimbledon. So these are in the public domain anyway, but the master plan from this point actually builds up in 5-year chunks. So we're not showing the big picture at the end, we're actually showing how Wimbledon will evolve and progress as planning activity happens. And again, this was in the last plan. We are looking at what we'll call Wimbledon's DNA, that's about design quality. So it's looking at what's there now, the character, the fabric, the feel. But it can be done in a modern way, more up-to-date way, maybe a more creative way. So we've developed this a bit further than the last consultation and into the new plan. Mentioned public spaces as well. Again, this is an idea of where we might use community infrastructure levy or wanted funding or money from developers to green up the streets, actually change the character of some streets. Queen's Road, if you know it, the shopping centre turns it back onto Queen's Road. There's really beautiful historic buildings there, but it's the fire escape to shops. Why shouldn't that be the food and drink area where they can spill onto the pavement? There's such a wide pavement, Queen's Road is not heavily trafficked. Do a bit of a South Kensington, frankly. That street could be much better. This isn't about rebuilding the place, it's about working with what we've got and amplifying what should be successful in the world. We have done a lot of engagement on the public spaces as well. Through Play Wimbledon, so we put some temporary seating and play areas in there, use that as an engagement tool. From that we get concept designs for St Mark's Place and the space at the theatre. We've trialled the space at the theatre now. We're going to come back next year and look to consult properly and develop that into the final plan. And the budget that was mentioned earlier, we get £1.5 million over 3 years. That's to begin to deliver some of these public realm enhancements. So we don't want to wait for development, we want to get in there now and start improving public spaces. Like we've done in College Wood and Mitcham in previous years. Just took this to go, the next question time. Morden is the biggest regeneration priority for the council. And we've said that for 10 years. But what has moved on is we've moved from planning policy to having an ambition to spend in the last 18 months really drilling down into how are we going to deliver Morden and how are we going to deliver the type and pace of change that a place like Morden needs. And often what's held Morden back is really fragmented land ownership. The market hasn't been here to develop because the council's been the freeholder. Yes, we can assemble some of our land, but we need investment and a development partner to do that with us. Across the road from the council's land is TfL land, so actually quite early on we thought we need to pull all this together. We need the public sector working as one, and from that point, the private sector investment in. The private sector don't want to work on team public sector partners, they want them. So what we're going to do, and there's cabinet reports on the way now to full council in December, we will be forming a proper partnership with TfL, and the purpose of that partnership is that we go and start the procurement process to get development partner in to work with us and deliver more. What underpins that project is we've got a major funded bid in the Mayor of London at the moment. That is going well. Still going through some technical due diligence on that, but we hope to bring that to conclusion in January, at the point we go to the market with all the technical due diligence pack around the procurement, funding to get it moving, and we've already done some soft market testing amongst developers. There's a lot of appetite for a place like More. It works because it's not super sexy zone 1 and 2 hyper-priced real estate. It's the kind of town Londoners would want to live in. The price point for Morton really is attractive to a lot of first-time buyers and people wanting a house or apartment. Because we're tied with the Mayor of London, it's going to be 40% affordable. That is in the procurement pack. That is what we'll be asking the industry to give us. And what this vision hints at here as well is the high street has to change. We do not need a dual carriageway road through that high street. We don't need 20 buses churning out diesel fumes. As you're welcome to Morton, we need a new public space, and all of that has been consistent through a lot of the resident engagement we've done. And actually we trialled it in for Farming Day. So last month, despite the epic rain, for Play Streets we did actually, at about 4 days notice from London buses, we got permission to actually close the bus station and create a park, so we gave it a good go. A bit of Ashton Duff and deck chairs and space hoppers were brightening anyone's mood. But what this really showed to us is, and a lot of residents who enjoyed it, is Morton does have a big space in the middle of it. It shouldn't be given over to buses, it should be for people. And actually once you're in it, it's a huge space. So this just gives an idea of how we want to creatively try something before we spend millions doing it. So that's what that was about. Just finally touching on town centre development, there's another one, the council's own property company, Merton Developments, has also invested in Merton's town centres. Certainly in Mitchell we've got 2 sites. Went to a design review panel last night, and the planning applications for that are in and will be live next week. Touching very much on what came up with the Clarion schemes earlier, we've been designing these for the long haul because we're owned and funded by the council. We're not building these to sell, we're holding them for rent, different people here. So these need to be very robust, they exceed space standards. The sustainability strategy has been about no gas, no fossil fuel. So we're really thinking about the future tenants of these buildings as well as getting planning and schemes developed. So that's an example of Raleigh Gardens, just on the edge of Mitcham Town Centre behind Iceland. Another one just north of Mitcham Town Centre is Elm Nursery. So these went well at GRP last night. They'll progress to the planning and we look forward to delivering this investment in Mitcham going forward. I'll leave that for questions.
Okay, we'll go to Councillor Bridge on the presentation.
Thank you. It's a presentation with regards to sort of Raleigh Gardens and Merton. There's a recurrent theme in both this, which is about the displacement of traffic. You said a nice line that it should be about people, not for buses, but it's people on the buses. It's people that need the buses in the middle of Morton. And then with Raleigh Gardens, one of the big problems we have in Mitcham is that the lack of footfall, the lack of people accessing the what few shops that are actually there. Raleigh Gardens is being built on top of a car park now, or intends to be. Now, how do we fit that into a sort of master plan, or what master plan do you have to ensure that we're not just creating, by building a Raleigh Gardens, we're not creating more problems for the commercial aspect of Mitcham, and for this sort of greenery issue, we don't just displace the issue to do with buses?
Is this specific to Raleigh Gardens or Mitcham Town Centre generally?
This is specific to Raleigh Gardens and the Merton and the Merton.
So Raleigh Gardens, I think the point there was, is there a master plan for Mitcham? No. There was a plan for the streetscape in public realm which was designed to bring the buses into the middle, which therefore the footfall would come with the bus passengers for Mitcham Town Centre. That really isn't the end of the story. It's part of a long-term plan for Mitcham.
Or absence of plan.
Well, we've got the local plans get strategic policy for Mitcham. There's some site allocations in there. What's difficult in Mitcham is the council doesn't own a lot of lands to enable that change up front. For example, Morrison's is the biggest block in there, but that's privately owned. So there's lots of things in the background that council can't control in Mitcham. With Raleigh Gardens specifically, yes, it's a car park now. The council has declared it surplus. And Aston Ranson's built properties on there. More people living around the town centre will support the town centre. More people being in walking distance in the town centre shouldn't affect the traffic. And in Mitcham, we've added more short-term parking around the Fair Green as part of the Rediscover Mitcham project. And there's a 7-storey, multi-storey car park in the town centre. So we don't believe there's a lack of parking. There's just a displacement to happen around the parking. Morton's very different. Morton station alone has got 10 million people using it a year. Morton High Street doesn't look like it's got 10 million footfall. It just doesn't. It's too easy to get off the tube on a bus, and therefore we're actually missing that spend on what keeps people in the town. So to some extent the bus station is the biggest problem in Morton, not just in terms of air quality, but how footfall works around the town centre. It actually makes it too convenient to miss Morton completely. So we want to create that public space and attract us to keep people in Morton. That's the problem.
Cheers. Absolutely. I could just pick up on Mitcham Town Centre. I think officers are acutely aware, partly because they have current members turning his attention to Mitcham Town Centre. The works in the Fair Green were the prelude to seeking further investment in that, and over the next period we'll be turning our attention to Mitcham Town Centre, notwithstanding the disparate land ownerships. The Clarion are a major landholder, the council's got significant land holdings, and there are other development sites that are, the opportunity lies there. So we will be turning our attention to Mitcham Town Centre and pulling those together, whether it results in a formal master plan or whatever the appropriate planning document. It also is how you work with all of the landowners and stakeholders there to pull together over the months and years ahead.
I suppose my issue, and again, I'm going to follow up with this, my issue is that we're doing Raleigh Gardens, which is piecemeal without having a plan, right? We seem to be sequencing, whereas so your priority now is right here, where we are, funny enough, and not Mitcham. Why do we not have the capacity to do both, And third and finally, we seem to be happy to do, we talk about disparate property owners within Mitcham, and there are many obstacles with disparate property owners in Mitcham. We seem happy to do CPOs on residents, but we don't seem happy to do CPOs on private companies with regards to commercial, if that's the obstacle to having a master plan. So I just don't understand why Mitcham isn't being treated in the same way, and with the same attention, with the same focus, the same priority, and the same boldness of ambition as other parts of the borough. And the little things that you are doing might not be what we want if we had a plan and the vision and the drive to go through with it.
Well, I think, not getting into sort of too granular discussion about vision, I think the point's well made, and we are turning our attention to Mitcham. Use of CPO powers. Certainly we will always take the view if it's appropriate. The CPO is something we really look to do as last resort, and what we always do is to seek to work with stakeholders. In terms of the development of sites in town centre currently, I think what we're, both Raleigh Gardens and Elm are not in the core town centre. We see the core town centre as being the area around Civic Road, Fair Green, etc. So we don't think it will be detrimental. But there will be a master plan that takes on the significant sites in the town centre. We always propose that we would work on the transport improvements in Mitcham town centre. Then our priorities are Morden and Wimbledon. But nevertheless, Mitchell is something that is clearly on the agenda for pulling that together.
I'm just going to move on to running out of time, so I go to Councillor Dean, next, then Councillor Holden, then Councillor Fairclough.
First of all, I think the renovation work we've done in Collinswood and Morden is excellent. I think your officers should be very proud of the work they've done. And not only they had great ideas, but they executed it. I think, secondly, I think building over the tube tracks from Morden Station to the depot is a wonderful opportunity, at least 40 metres back, because that's your real estate open and it opens up the back of Lidl, etc. I mean, TfL, I'm sure wouldn't mind that. Certainly Graham, whatever his name is, said in the past, he would love to do that. So please take up that opportunity because you've got real estate. I think, thirdly, you made a very good pitch at the beginning about why there's been change. I thought the whole presentation was very good. You forgot the residents. Wellington House only changed because the residents pushed it through because it was going to be that ugly monstrosity still, but a bit higher. And now it's very beautiful. And also the Fridge on the Bridge, there was one particular Dundonald councillor that stuck the boot in about the change. I won't tell you who he was. I'd also say that Morden, Jet Curran says that when a Sabre Centre turned up, it destroyed Morden accidentally, unintended consequence. Croydon used to be very hard to get to because it was a train every half an hour. And the life has been sucked out of Morden, so you have to change Morden. And I think everything you're doing there, and it's been around since 2006, is exactly right because circumstances have changed and it's appalling. Here we are. I think the other thing, and this is fundamental, and I've heard it from people talking about the famous East. I've never heard anyone talk about Mitcham as the East of Merton when you actually go there, but I mean, fundamentally I don't think anybody thinks about Mitcham in the same way as they do Wimbledon. And I think it's a subconscious. One of the major reasons I moved west is because when I got my first job in Piccadilly Circus, I used to have to walk, get 118, go to Morden, get a tube. So it's much easier just to move west, because then everything worked. I got there in 45 minutes rather than an hour and 20. And Crossroad 2 turns up, and everything's going through Wimbledon. Number one, it makes Wimbledon even more difficult to get across that middle section. And frankly, Wimbledon is one of the best served towns, actually in the whole world outside Japan. There's hardly any, there's a train in less than every 40 seconds. 40 seconds.
Dean, I'm really sorry, can you ask the questions? I've got a lot of people.
I know, but I think it's really, really important. I don't mind staying.
Okay.
I want this council to stand up to the government and the Mayor of London and say, Crossroad 2 is not going to Wimbledon. It is going to Mitcham and Morden, and then come back to Rains Park. Because if you look at the geography, that's how it should do. You should have better transportation ambition for Morden and Mitcham, and that is Crossroad 2. I finished work at 2:10 last night. I'm happy to do that if you come back and say that's what you're going to do. Forget Wimbledon, doesn't need any more transport. Please put Mitcham first. The only reason I have to keep mentioning it is because it doesn't get taken in. So that's why I'm on that.
Thank you very much. So can we get Crossroad 2 to Mitcham?
Yes, just write that down.
Yeah. Noted. And then Councillor Holden and then Councillor Fairclough.
Yeah, thank you. On our tours of the Regen estates earlier, we stopped off at the High Path and we commented about Merton High Street looking particularly drab. It would be a disaster if High Path was built and looked very nice, but the High Street next to it looked dire. It's that forgotten bit, South Wimbledon, and it could do with some tarting up, as Colliers has, parts of Wimbledon Town has, part of Morden has. Seems to be forgotten. So, is there any plans to do something at South Wimbledon?
Yeah, so as part of the local plan preparation, we've been working with South Wimbledon residents and certainly the Bathurst Residents Association. In Merton's new local plan, we've actually designated South Wimbledon its own local centre. A lot of not a problem, but it was always in between other places, so we've actually given it its own identity, but that came strong with the residents and we've responded to that. Yes, you're right, High Path has been bringing a lot of investment. We will end up with one side of the street, then it's the other. We've got our eye on it. We want to do short and great improvements and all that there as well, once the infrastructure levy and section of systems in. It's a question of priority and capacity at the moment, so we're doing Hayden Roads next, but that coincides with the stadium. Then in High Path, we want complementary measures so the regen spreads out beyond the sites, but it's a question of the capital at the same time.
Thank you, Chair. A quick one on the Place Streets agreements, street agreements. You mentioned there's going to be a full consultation next year. Is that going to be a consultation about how those current, how the new facilities, or is it going to be a consultation whether they're there at all?
So the two specific streets are St Mark's Place in Wimbledon and the space at the theatre. We're prioritising the space at the theatre first of all. We've got some technical reason for why we have to do works to the front of the theatre, but that would complement investment in the theatre plan as well. We're not going to consult on whether people want the road that way, because we tested it for a year and that came through last year's consultations. We will consult the technical design of the look and feel and the seats, the benches, the trees. We'll consult the detailed design. St Mark's will follow on from that. There's a lot of technical design there about how the church is accessed for events, how the brewery always get in and out there. We've lost the trees there anyway, so we'll get a detailed design on the function of that space, but that will follow on after the year.
Thank you, Chair. As following on from Councillor Holden's point earlier, during today's visit, the three regeneration sites of evidence to us that there's going to be a hell of a lot more footfall, a lot more people there, and density is going to increase dramatically. And just looking around, there seems to be an opportunity there to address that in some sort of formal opportunities document or some way to view how we can do more than just beautify the shop fronts. Given the fact that a lot of our focus today has been talking about the reductions that we have to make, and being saying this not lightly, what opportunities are there to actually invest in, say, commercial properties or others, so that we can have more of a stake and hold more levers in the areas that matter to our communities?
Well, I can focus particularly on Morden. We have a land stakeholding, albeit it's a freehold interest. One of the key components of that is how we get the right partner. That partner is likely to be part of a corporate vehicle, and part of the procurement exercise will be what's the long-term vision, management, ownership of our town centres, particularly Morden. And that's part of what we'll be seeking to do, is get the right partner, because the partner is not just about bringing money in and building, it's about sharing the same vision, the same ethos. And if it's appropriate, through the likes of the Morden project, we're looking to see whether or not the council retains a stake. There's got to be a business case for that. But there are broader ways of making sure that the estate is managed in a way that's actually for managing the place, rather than how we make sure that the windows are cleaned, because it's ultimately how people on the street interact, are able to access services, and more crucially just feel like you've got a sense of ownership of that place, whether it's for the 10 minutes as you arrive at the tube station, or that's where you live and you come down and that coffee shop's your local gaff. That's what we want to do.
So we're just about to reach 10 o'clock. Is everyone okay to stay a bit longer? Just to wrap things up a bit. Okay, great. Any other comments or questions? No? Okay. Well, thank you very much. And we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is performance monitoring. Item 10. Have you had a chance to discuss some meetings about that?
Not particularly. I was wondering if Chris could highlight his main points and see if I could with those in my notes as well, to speak things up a bit.
I can do to say a few words in the interest of time. I was just going to take questions, Chair, but one or two points that might be of interest for the panel. Firstly, on page 221, just for information, we've got a housing target there of 1328. We expect that to come down over the London plan being revised. A more realistic approach to the housing target for the borough, something around the 900 number. Even that's twice the number of units that we're delivering each year in the borough.
Could you actually suggest where it might come from?
Well, they were saying small sites, so back garden development and sort of scale.
Sound like the new efficiencies.
So even, 900 is going to be a significant stretch, but at least it's 400 or so below the target we were previously set. On the next page, on Saturday, the Department for Transport Grant Chat is to publish the national performance on electric vehicle charging points. And will be, I think, it may well be, but I'm going to just tell you what our numbers are, because they're slightly different from the numbers here. Obviously that's not subject to further. But the analysis nationwide is the number of EV charging points per 100,000 population. The average across the country is 10, and they're looking at boroughs that have fewer than 10 per 100,000. We have 57 per 100,000, so we're in a very good place. We've got 118 at the moment and growing fast. So we expect to see that number rise over the next 12 months and beyond, and obviously that's part of our strategy to encourage the behaviour change around transport. Flight tips removed within 24 hours. You can see a good performance there, despite the volumes remaining very high. And in the interest of time, Sharon, I think I will go and take questions.
On the flight tips, so I've been contacted by a couple of residents about reporting things and things not being collected. In one case, it took 2 weeks. How are we measuring this within 24 hours figure? Because evidently there's still some things falling through the cracks. So just to ensure that we're all definitely on the same page.
So this monitors those which are reported through CRM, so by a resident, which then goes into ECHO, and where Veolia then collect it and record it on ECHO back into CRM and it's been collected. Given the volume, we can't check every single one and it's been collected, and I accept that some residents may find that it hasn't been collected. John, do you want to answer?
Chair, there's also some peculiarities in regards to the information where if you have types of flight tipping that require specialist vehicles or, for example, non-compaction vehicles and maybe on private land, those or asbestos hazardous waste, they will require different arrangements. They aren't recorded with these metrics as they are managed in different processes.
To be clear, I'm not talking about asbestos or something like that, I'm talking about just general flight tipping. But it would be, we could be keen to understand how we're checking the quality of this data and making sure that they actually are being collected. So we'd be keen to keep that coming back to the panel.
I can do that, and that is a particular interest of mine as well, because I'm supposed to see anomalies in regards to the granular data.
Okay, question on littering and detritus. These figures and reports seem to be still stubbornly high. Is there any particular reason to account for this? So I thought Veolia was doing some action on this. Suggest that it's not working.
Thank you. Yes, they are high, but they're accurate. The established numbers within the target value are stretched and opportunistic in terms of a highly performing service. We are moving in that direction of travel. The plan that we have implemented in the East has borne some fruit, and we are seeing general improvements around, but we are, if anything, grading more stringently to ensure that we maintain that pressure to deliver improved services. So it's more about the long haul and trying to get at those sustained implementations. Some of the things that we're waiting for are we're looking at a electric mechanized sweeping apparatus to be applied to footways to raise the detritus level, because that's a particular area of focus. We're waiting for that equipment and looking at that pilot to see what work that does. That's twofold, because that equipment can also be used in sensitive areas because it's an electric vehicle and it has a lower operating noise level, so it can be used earlier in the morning when things aren't in the highway blocking its effectiveness. So we're looking at ways of teasing this out, but it will be a longer, sustained improvement over time.
I didn't want to comment on that, but I mean, if you know they're a global company and they've got all their mechanisms around the world, you see all their problems around the world, it's changing their attitude. I wanted to talk about electric vehicle chargers. Most of them are too slow. They take between 10 and 20 hours to fill up that tank. And you need to really, on Source London, get them up to 7 kilowatts minimum. And if you can get them up to sort of 11 to 15, so that people can charge their vehicles much quicker. I think that's probably the major reason why people are not charging their cars so much on them. And the other problem, which is not a Merton Council one, is there are 5 major networks where you have to sign up and pay 50 quid to be a member. And then, sometimes they're not maintained well, sometimes they're spending 10 hours to charge, and therefore it's not a very good way of going forward. So really, you can say to Source London, well, yeah, 7 kilowatt minimum, and he needs to upgrade all the ones he's got today, but really go for 11 kilowatt, and then they might be worth using. But at the moment, they're just pretty pointless.
So, a brief answer on that. We do have, I think, 6 rapid chargers, and a large proportion of the 118 that are referred to are 7 to 22 kilowatts. So they are charging a car over probably about 7 hours, so overnight.
That's interesting. Everyone I've been on is only 3.
And it's a private market, so we're at the mercy of the providers, the energy suppliers.
But you only got one supplier as a monopoly then, don't you, which is Source London?
Well, there are others, there's
yes,
car club providers, so we're at the mercy of the market to provide the supply that the car user needs.
So do you tell them what you want, or they tell you what you're going to get? Source London
I don't know whether Paul's got the answer to that. Sorry?
There's both. It's a mixed bag at the moment. A lot of them are in residential areas where you expect residents will charge a vehicle overnight. So that's why they're not the rapid ones. But in the more town centre areas and public car parks in future, the rapid charges will make more sense.
Yes, so we share the same strategy. We've just got to change a lot of those 3 kilowatt ones, which seem to be maybe in my area. But we'll get them to 7 at least.
Okay, thank you very much. In the interest of time, I think we'll just move on to the work programme. Any comments? All agreed? Brilliant. Okay, we'll close the meeting. Thank you so much, everybody, for your time and contributions. Get home safely. Take care. See you soon.
Highlight my day.